Want to start with a martini?
Yeah.
It seems like the civilized thing to do, right?
Yeah. We don't have to have anything. We're just having a...
Little tasting glasses, yeah?
Yeah.
Not frozen or anything, but find that. You're a fan of the frozen glass? Do you think this should be frozen or refrigerated?
I think it should be frozen.
Yeah.
I think, because glass is such a good conductor, it's good to have it in a frozen glass. And I just think, optically,
It does look good.
I mean, if you're making drinks at home, the one big thing I'd tell anybody who's making a drink at home is get your glasses frozen.
Yeah.
If that's the one thing you can do, you can make a shit drink, put it in a frozen glass.
Yeah.
And it makes people think they're getting a good drink.
Yeah. It's
Because
sort
if
of
you think
emblem of
where you
quality.
may have drunk, when you get a frozen glass, it's in the Connaught, it's in Duke's, it's in these sort of bars.
Yeah.
And it automatically makes things appear correct.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
I do think the one thing I would say is that if you drink too quickly out of it, then the glass is colder than the drink.
Yeah.
And there's that weird thing where even if the drink's fucking cold, it feels warmer than the glass, and that's sort of strange. But if you leave it a minute, let's say, in that frozen glass, then it all
Balances out, yeah. But no, I always want to have a martini out. I can't think of a drink that I don't really want to have frozen glass. Champagne.
Yeah, why is that then?
I don't think. Well, obviously there's ice on the inside of the glass.
Then you get all those supplements.
It's sublimating the bubbles.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people always used to try and freeze champagne glasses, and it used to really annoy me.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never seen anyone attempt that, but you're right. I mean, it would go dramatically wrong, wouldn't it?
Yeah. No, I've worked in places where they've said, no, you have to freeze the. In sort of like that nightclub environment, again, I think it was an optical thing. We freeze all your glasses.
No,
I'm
champagne's gonna be all over
drinking
the floor.
fucking Krug out of a frozen glass.
So this is a Hepple martini?
Yeah, it's my default.
And what's the ratio? What's just default spec?
On this one, because it's a daytime one, it's 7-1.
7-1.
7-1, still
And
fairly
how
old
does that
school.
compare to a nighttime one?
10-1.
10-1.
I'm
So
in
you
the
get
gin
drier
business,
and
not
drier.
the vermouth business. Don't make any vermouth. No, I mean, again, I think fashions have changed, haven't they? You know, I remember going over to America and they were drinking 50-50s and 2-1, and I was just like, this isn't how I think of a
You
martini.
think it's getting drier again now?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it is. I think when I first started bartending, by which point you'd already been behind the stick for about 10 or 15 years, I think, things were pretty dry.
Yeah.
Like, everyone was like, rinse the glass, spray it, whatever. Tip away the vermouth, all that kind of
That
thing.
was the thing, was to
Yeah.
take away the vermouth was the way I learned.
Which is hilarious. I was having this conversation, I think it was with Alice, actually. They're saying, like, there must have been a vermouth brand that came up with that little ritual, right?
Well, to be honest, I think it's because the vermouth was always kept so badly that you probably didn't
Want it in there anyway. Yeah.
Because, again, when I first worked in bars, vermouth was not in the fridge. Vermouth was on the back bar or in the speed rail. And it was in big 700 bottles, so it wasn't, they weren't
Or
buying
even a
nice
1 litre
little-
bottle.
Yeah. And there wasn't a huge choice.
No.
It would have been martini or noi if you were lucky.
Yeah.
That would have been it.
Well, vermouth was on optics a lot of the time
Yeah,
in
yeah.
pubs, wasn't
Yeah,
it? Which is like, here we go. This is how we're not treating it correctly.
But I think, that was probably one of the first drinks I used to drink. I mean, I used to drink vermouth and soda or lemonade or something when I was like 16.
Yeah, that's what my wife used to drink. Martini.
And it's actually quite
Martini
nice. I mean, I like it, yeah.
Vermouth in most mixers is delicious.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's really tasty.
Yeah.
If the vermouth's not off and horrible.
I think that sort of like rinsing it, a lot of the vermouth was just sitting out. I mean, in the Savoy it might not have been. But in London in 1987, I think is when I first came to London, it was sitting in awful places.
Yeah.
And there was no aircon in most places.
Yeah.
So it was warm.
Cooking under a hot bar, like
Cooking.
halogen lamps.
The ice was dreadful. I mean, everything was dreadful.
Yeah.
So it literally was. I mean, when I worked with Dick for the first time, the first martinis you made, vermouth went in, you rinsed it, and you threw it.
Yeah. It's like, this needs to go down the drain.
Yeah, it needs to go down the drain.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, look, since you started on the journey of your bartending career, let's dig into that a little bit. So 1987.
I think it's 87.
Was that Fred's club?
It was Fred's, yeah. I came down to London to go to university, and I was lucky I still got a grant and I still got accommodation. It was when the government actually paid for you to do things like that, which was amazing. And I was studying at the Courtauld Institute, History of Art, and I needed money. And I looked at a copy of the Face magazine, and in there was a little thing about Fred's opening. And so I just pitched up and said, I want a job. And I started washing pots. So I worked in a little kitchen upstairs, a tiny little cube that did very basic food. And I pot washed for 4 or 5 months. And then it was at the back of a horseshoe-shaped bar. And then somebody was sick, so I went out onto the bar. And basically that became my bar almost upstairs. So it was a little bar above the main bar. The main bar was downstairs, a big long bar. And then I had this horseshoe-shaped bar upstairs. And so I basically stepped out.
You're basically a bar manager from Wash to bar manager.
Yeah, I mean, Dick would never have said that. Nobody was as important as him. But no, I was a bartender quite quickly by default. I mean, I'd watch what they were doing. And I'd worked, when I was a kid, I had a Saturday job in a wine shop. And I used to bunk off school to go work in the wine shop there in the summer and things like that. So I'd worked in the wine business a lot. And I used to drink a lot. And then I just fell into it. And then I basically stopped going to university. I used to send a dictaphone to all the lectures.
What, with a friend?
Yeah, with a friend. I used to work until 3 a.m. and then stay out. And I used to think, why am I bothering going to university when there's this exciting thing? Soho was really exciting.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember nights where I was sitting and I was in this horseshoe-shaped bar. I was probably sat 20 people, I think, maximum. And I had Francis Bacon on one side, David Bowie on the other. And there was somebody else very famous. And I was like, why am I going to learn about this artist when I can actually chat to him?
The artist, right?
And the artist is buying me bottles of Bollinger as a gift. Why am I?
Wow.
So I used to send the dictaphone in. And I loved going to the university. I really enjoyed it. So I used to sneak in at about lunchtime. I never went to a lecture. And it had this amazing library. It's not where it is now in Somerset House. It's where Home House is, the club.
Oh, yeah.
So it's those two buildings, like these Adam buildings. And so I used to go sit in these dusty libraries and read. And then I'd troll off to work at like 4 o'clock, get back at 3, 4 in the morning. I live round the corner in Marble Arch in a Cora residence. And I was like, there's no point. It's much more exciting actually meeting the people.
So Fred's Club was a real hangout then for people in the arts?
Yeah, I mean, it was set up just after the Groucho Club. I think the Groucho was 85 and this would have been 87. And it was set up by somebody who'd worked in the Groucho, and Dick had obviously worked in the Groucho. And prior to that, they worked in a place called Zanzibar.
Yes, which Dick had worked at.
Dick worked at Zanzibar.
Was that his first bar job?
No, he worked. I remember him from Fred's, but we used to go to Zanzibar because it was still open at that point. It was an amazing bar. I've never seen a bar that's had such a beautiful shape to the bar top because it had a wave shape. So you could never sit on it. I think one of the things with bars is you sit at them and you don't communicate either side, but you'd sit on these curves. So you would be always slightly looking at somebody else.
Yeah, or you're back to someone else.
Or with your back, but there'd be at least 2 or 3 that were in your eye line, so you'd start to
What was the bar top made out of then? Was it wood?
No, I think it was metal. I mean, it's a long time.
Yeah.
ago. I think I only went there probably half a dozen times, but it had the most beautiful shape.
But the horseshoe bar is good for that as well.
The horseshoe was brilliant because you used to get this interaction across it, and it wasn't a very wide horseshoe either. It was like a gang sort of like way down the centre of it.
So you've got effectively a sort of large communal table with a
You've got
bartender.
big, yeah. And it wasn't the main bit. It was the bit that in the basement there was more of a nightclub. There was a DJ type thing, tiny little concrete box, and then the ground floor was like this big long concrete corridor with a bar that ran all the way down one side, and then upstairs was this tiny little horseshoe bar. I mean, it's a fairly uncomfortable place. It was that sort of like 1980s concrete, wrought iron, very minimal sort of thing, awful acoustics.
Yeah, just bouncing off all the walls.
Poof, poof, yeah. But it was amazing. I mean, it was bonkers. Absolutely bonkers.
What do you remember about working with Dick at that time?
What a pain in the fucking arse he was. I mean, literally, what a pain in the arse he was. I mean, we used to have this thing that he never served anybody apart from the people he wanted to serve. He would never make drinks that he didn't want to make. I mean, he was amazing, and we can talk more about him.
Yeah.
But back then, I was like 19, and I was like, this man's a fucking mental case, and a right fucking pain in the ass. If you didn't put the music on that he'd liked, he'd tell you off. And then we would occasionally call his bluff, so we'd all walk out. He'd come down and put his music on. We'd be like, no, and we'd literally just walk out the front door.
Why?
Because he was really, really a pain in the ass. But he was right, probably.
So quite authoritarian.
Yeah, I mean, I think you probably met him in his latter days. He was much younger then, and he had worked in this military club. I mean, I think he talks about going, I think it was the In and Out or the Army in that, so one of these sort of places. So he had this military side to him. And then obviously this other sort of like dressing up in drag sites.
Yeah, yeah,
A complete contradiction. And you never knew which bit of him you get. He was incredibly quirky.
Yeah.
But in the bar, there were the people who liked him, and I was sort of like straddled the middle of it. And then there were people who didn't like him, basically.
But he was inspiring?
I think I probably at the time didn't know how inspirational he was. I mean, I worked with him for a long, long time. When I was 19, I went in there to take drugs, drink, meet these people and have this life. And also I used to get paid essentially cash. And everything was cash back then. And you didn't pay, if you were a student, you didn't pay tax. So I was on tax-free, sort of like £500, £600.
Plus your student grant.
Plus I was paying 50 quid for my accommodation, and it included meals if I could be asked to eat there. So I was flush and cash rich. So that's why I was going. And then the people were amazing, you know, sitting and talking to David Bowie, or, you know, it was this incredible thing. And it used to turn away people. You know, Boy George wasn't a member, he wasn't allowed, and he eventually became a member, but, you know, it was ruthless.
What were the drinks like?
The drinks, I mean, it was, the Russian Spring Punch was on there, Brambles were served, but, you know, we were serving Long Island.
Vodka espresso was invented there, right?
The vodka espresso, I mean, it was not invented there. He did it round the corner in the Soho Brasserie, I think. And I don't think it was on the menu. People say it was. I think it was the drink that we drank. Because we used to just drink it all the time. Everybody was drinking vodka and disguising it in this thing.
Yeah, and you got the caffeine as well. So
and it was like bartenders' cocaine if the coke dealer hadn't arrived.
Yeah.
You just top yourself up with vodka espressos all night long.
Yeah.
What else was on there? There was a thing called a nuclear Fred, which I remember, which came served in a pint glass, and it was like a Long Island iced tea. But I think it had Kummel in it.
Okay.
And it was topped with lemonade.
Wow.
And people were necking those by the pint. And then obviously things like Woo-Woos and Sea Breeze, cranberry juice arrived.
Yep.
That was like this revolutionary.
And a lot of vodka in general.
It was tons of vodka. It was tons of vodka. I mean, there were odd things. Dick was obsessed by Havana Club, and you couldn't get Havana Club very easily. Pernod, it was pre-Pernod owning it. And so there was a little bloke called John Humphreys who used to bring it in. He was a saffron dealer. And he had some friend in Cuba, and he used to ship bits. He became a wine dealer later on, but he was a saffron dealer who shipped over Havana Club. So we'd get Havana Club in.
I mean,
and we'd make daiquiris,
doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was
saffron dealer we're dealing with Castro's government and
yeah. So you get Havana Club. Absolut was around Vibaroa. He was a big fan of Dick. I'm trying to think what. I mean, we thought things like Mary Brizard was exciting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What? So, are there any products or drinks from that time that you sort of lament the loss of?
No, not really.
No.
I mean, I think
you think everything's improved on the whole. Like
everything is better. Every single thing about the bar world is better, except perhaps the ability to be completely off your face and not have somebody in a phone stick it down your throat.
Yeah.
That I lament the days when there were no mobile phones. And that people would just... everything was much more random. You know, pages were the mode of communication. And people would just turn up, and then they would get absolutely shit-faced. You know, and things would happen. I remember there was a big advertising guy who used to come in all the time. He was like a dodgy East End guy who'd come out to the sort of like Cray Twins. There was still that sort of like feeling to London. And he came in one day, and I said, what would you like? And he went, 3 grams of coke, 2 hookers, and a bottle of Dom Perignon. And I was like, I think his name was Gary, I can't remember his fucking name. And I was like, he was the first in, it was like 6 o'clock in the evening. And I looked over about 45 minutes later, and there he was, sitting on a table with 3 hookers.
All the things.
The Dom Perignon was there, and he was sniffing. You were like, you got exactly what you wanted. But it was no holds barred.
Yeah.
No holds barred. You could do whatever you wanted. And I
do
miss
it. Do you think it is just the smartphone that's kind of killed that? Or do you think there's a different kind of cultural shift around, I don't know, responsible drinking or health?
I think there's a load of rubbish around that, yeah. But I think the thing that killed most of those things is the fact that people will take a photograph of you doing something you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And so there was a freedom and a liberated thing that you could do whatever you wanted. And you could just about do whatever you wanted.
I think it's not just the photo. I think it's also just the general connectivity And the fact that it's like, right, I'm here, these people are here, maybe we've got a mutual Facebook friend, or, you know, I'm being watched by that person, that might report it online that I did this thing. It doesn't necessarily even need to be evidence, just a report of misdemeanors, you know, or whatever.
Well, everything was folkloric back then. You know, you'd tell tales of, did you see so-and-so last week doing X, Y, and Z? And people were like, oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's not properly documented, really.
There was no documentation of anything.
Yeah.
Which I think was really, really liberating. And it was a time, obviously, he was coming out, he was coming off the military bases, so you were getting really good the big raves were starting to happen. There was a huge cultural shift. And it was amazing for about 10 years, I would say. It was pre the mobile phone. And you know, you went to places to hope that you'd find a night out. And you'd almost go, you know, when they... And again, there was a closing time. So everything hard closed at 2, and then it was illegal drinking dens. And they were amazing because they would move and shift. So somebody would whisper something about somewhere and you'd go to that thing and you'd drink till 4 or 5 in some grotty little den in Soho behind a sex shop. I mean, my memory is that you'd always go down the staircase through, you know, those nylon curtains, you know, like those strips of sort of like different coloured plastic.
Yes.
So you'd go behind the counter, through one of those, and then there'd be this thing happening downstairs that always had a shit pool table that was slightly wonky. And it was always the same people. Dodgy drug dealers and gangsters meet sort of like gay
I mean, it's
club
London's
kids.
version of the speakeasy then.
Yeah. But there were loads of them. And that's, you know, every night you'd finish your shift and you'd find one of those to go to and drink awful drinks. Like dreadful, warm, grotty drinks.
Could you ever imagine a return to that sort of like more like liberated form of going out and drinking, or do you think that?
I think that's just finished.
Yeah.
I think it's finished. I think it was a unique moment, and I think probably New York had already previously had it. And, you know, London's too expensive. There is no space for anyone. You know, Soho, you could get spaces and open things, and you could, you know, people ran illegal places. It's now all developed, and space is so expensive.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know how people do it. I mean, I know. I used to live in Brick Lane in a sort of like 5-story warehouse for 250 quid a month on Bacon Street, and we had like 5,000 square feet.
Crazy, yeah.
And we used to skateboard on the top floor. We had bicycles going round. It was, but it cost nothing, and there was so much derelict space. There is none of that anymore. I mean, there's lots of empty space, but it's modern office blocks.
A lot of money for it and everything. Yeah. It's just been gentrified, hasn't it? I mean, this is the sort of shame, isn't it, that these places that are, I guess, sort of fun, a bit edgy, exciting, they slowly become so desirable for that very reason that the prices go up, the renovations take place, and all of a sudden
this area,
10x
you know, Shoreditch.
I mean,
you know, I lived around here for years and years and years, and it is better now. Again, there's a lot of sort of like, oh, it was better back then. No, everything is better now, apart from the price of everything. You know, if you live around here now, you can get coffee. I remember I used to work because I wasn't always working in bars. So I used to work there as a photographer. When I dropped out of university, I'd sort of like studied jewellery for a little while, and then I did photography, and then I started becoming a photographer's assistant. And I used to go printing in Hoxton Square. And I used to have to walk to Liverpool Street to get coffees for the photographers.
all from Hoxton Square.
All the way from Hoxton Square. Now, you couldn't move from a fucking trendy coffee shop round here now.
Everywhere, yeah.
And that is a good thing. It was a pain in the arse having to walk all the way to Liverpool Street to get a substandard coffee.
Yeah, but it's sort of homogenization in a way, isn't it?
Well, they're all the same.
Yeah.
They're all the same. I mean, they're all better, but they're all the same.
Yeah. And all the different parts of London start to become kind of the same. Yeah, you've still got architectural differences, and some buildings are higher than others and some are older than others, but you end up with more or less the same shops, more or less the same bars.
I think it's inevitable. I mean, you know, if you wander around London, there are these little tower things happening all over the place. Stratford's a good example of it. And if you go out to Wembley, there's one, and they're building them all over the place. These sort of like little centres for everybody to hang around in, sort of like vertical communities. It's like an awful J.G. Ballard novel. But I mean, it's better now than I think it has been for a long time, despite all these things. Because I think one of the good things is people do stay in those areas, which gives other areas a bit more space.
Well, yeah, and also community is good. Like having a community spirit locally is a good thing. So I get it, but it's got a slight Brave New World thing about it, hasn't it? Where you're like, this is all great, but there's something not quite right.
I mean, I find it very disturbing going into Canary Wharf or Stratford. You know, and I think you see it. I went down to see the Hawksmoor thing because I've been involved in it, and I couldn't find it, and I got lost slightly. And obviously, your mobile phone doesn't work when you're in Canary Wharf, so you end up behind where you're supposed to be, and it's all delivery lorries of laundry and this other community of people,
this sort of sub-level,
and you see it, and it's the hierarchy. The guys with the money are at the top, and then there are these people who run it. Who are all in this basement area.
Got their own roads, and
they've got their own roads, and they're all travelling around on electric vehicles, and it's really dystopian and disturbing. And then you come back up again, and you're like, oh, this is where I thought I was. I don't like it. I really don't like it. It's very inhumane. Or it's not the humanity I like.
No, it isn't. And yet, I think for a lot of people, it feels like what a modern city should be, with this, like, you know, service structure, and then, you know, different tiers of operation and polished exterior surface, and that everyone's got their role and everyone's in their place. And
it's like in an ant colony.
It's
awful. I mean, it's the opposite of what I like. I think the great thing about hospitality is it allows mobility for people who are willing to work hard and who are good. And it doesn't matter what colour you are, what gender you are, what preference you have sexually. If you're good at what you do, you can rise to the top. I think if you start to take it in that direction, where every of them does have to become a product, and if you look like this, you're at that role. I mean, forget what Dick did for cocktails. I mean, there are some great cocktails. He employed people that were slightly misfit. You know, he used to employ gay people. He employed women. He really actively promoted doing that because he wanted it to change. He didn't want it to be the hospitality of the 5-star hotel. You know, you could get a good drink in the Savoy, and he was like, no, you should be able to get a good drink everywhere. And the people who serve you should not be these people who've come through that hotel system. But he had his own way of doing it. But you
egalitarian sort of approach.
Yeah, and he really wanted misfits to do it. And it's a great industry for people who don't quite fit in.
Yeah, well, there's
a
freedom of expression, isn't there, within hospitality, and particularly behind the bar, I think. I mean, there's, you know, you're a history of art student. There's a lot of people in this industry who've studied drama, acting, or they're musicians or whatever, and it's staged to some extent, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, nobody when I started working wanted to be a bartender. I mean, Dick was the only person I knew who actually wanted to work behind it. I had no ambition to do anything else. I didn't want to work behind it. Nobody I worked with, most of them became actors or whatever. Some stayed in hospitality and became chefs.
But do you think that's changed? Do you think there's people now who are sort of 16, 17, or maybe
drinking? I think there are a lot of people who want to do it. I'm not sure whether it's a good thing. I think it's the sort of thing you end up doing because you are good at it and you fit in it.
Why is it not a good thing, though?
Because I think quite a lot of people I talk from recent experience, there are a lot of 17, 18-year-olds who want to do it, but they don't want to do the legwork to get there. Okay. They believe that...
So it's not a good thing for the industry.
I know it's a good thing. I think, I've worked with chefs who I want to be a TV chef. It's like, well, no, you need to be a fucking chef first. Learn how to peel a potato, chop it and cook it, and do the time. And then eventually you should rise to the top and maybe you'll become a TV chef, but don't set out to be a TV chef or an Instagram. And I think there's a lot of that stuff where it's instant gratification.
Well, and also I think a lot of those people are finding success through social media, even though they don't necessarily know how to cook, mix drinks, insert skill here, because either the right editing, with the right sort of text, graphics, cut punchy kind of music back thing, you can appear to be a master of your craft, or at least knowledgeable enough. And if you've got the right communication skills, the right kind of passion, even if you're lacking in the experience and skills front, you can come across like someone who knows what they're talking about.
Well, you can read about it. Or you can research it online, and you can have a huge knowledge base. But I don't think knowledge base is the skill that is needed. And I don't think bartending is about... I don't actually think it's about making a good drink. I think it's about a lot more things than that.
Sure.
Whereas I think a lot of people who would see it via Instagram or TV will think it's about making a really complex, good drink. That's of irrelevance. It's about every other facet is much more important than what's in the glass, or the ability to make what's in the glass.
We'll get back to the show shortly, but first I wanted to give a shout out to our sponsor, Fever-Tree. Fever-Tree have been my mixer of choice for more than a decade now, going right back to when I used them as our mixer at 15 in Cornwall in 2005. It's a very long time ago. This is a brand, of course, that made its name with tonic water. But to be honest with you, the thing that's going to be most excited at the moment is their range of ginger mixers. They have ginger beer, ginger ale, and then this product here, which is possibly my favorite in the entire range. Fever-Tree Spiced Orange Ginger Ale. The product starts out just like their normal ginger ale, flavored with 3 unique gingers that harmoniously come together for a nice citric, zesty, but also subtly spicy ginger effect. Then 2 more ingredients are added: cinnamon for a nice baking spice hum, and then fresh clementine, which really extends that citric flavor and adds weight and body to this ginger ale. I would happily drink this stuff on its own, but of course it's a mixer, and it's best served with a nice whiskey, extending out into a highball and adding some real length and depth to it. Don't be fooled by the name. It's spiced orange. It might sound like it's a wintry ingredient, but actually it works brilliantly in summer highballs. And since we're approaching that period now's the time to crack it out.
Yeah, creativity is one of the things. I think I was talking to Angus about this, and he was saying it's totally kind of overrated as a skill of a bartender, because most bartenders don't need to be able to create cocktails to be a great bartender. They need to be able to serve cocktails, and they need to be able to host and control a room and manage the lighting and all the various other things that make a great night out for a guest. But they don't need to be able to know how to sort of pair this weird ingredient with that spirit and balance it in a cocktail and come up with all these new drinks and innovate in that way.
I mean, I agree to a certain extent. I don't think creativity is the most important bit, but I mean, I wouldn't have stayed in it if I wasn't able to be creative. Because at points I would have left it. And it was only because suddenly there was this sort of like, and I would say in about 1998 or whatever, where you could suddenly do something creative. It took on more of a culinary feel.
Yeah.
And it took on more of an artistic mode where you could do things new.
Yes.
You had access to historical documents, so you could research it.
Yep.
That it became, in that mind, it became more of a creative thing.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it was all about hospitality.
Yeah. No, and I totally agree with you on that. It's, for me, it's exactly the same. But from an operational standpoint...
Oh, no, I don't want creative.
You don't need
I want people who just do
creativity.
what I tell them to do.
Yes.
I want robots.
Yes.
But robots who have good communication skills.
Yeah, and who enjoy being there. And
Yeah.
of course, if creativity is part of that,
Yeah.
so be it,
Yeah. No. Yeah, I would far prefer people who are good people, who are good at hospitality. You can't teach people to hold open doors for people. It used to drive me fucking insane.
That was up to the parents to teach that at age 5 and 6.
Sort of like people walk out for their break and you're like, there's somebody behind you, just hold the fucking door open, you cretinous monkey. Like,
Yeah.
but you can't teach that. You either have that thing where you want to do that and you want to nurture your guests, or you're basically going in there maybe slightly for you want to be a superstar bartender who doesn't give a shit about that, and I don't want those people.
Yeah.
The best bartenders I've ever worked with have been the people who have been incredibly hospitable, and they happen to make good drinks well and quickly.
Yeah, and as you say, that's very, very untrainable. I mean, it's
Yes, you
it's
can't.
something that seems to be instilled in people from a very young age, I think. Manners and hospitality and a warming kind of personality. By the time you're 18 and you're stepping behind the bar, if you don't have that, it's unlikely you're going to be able to acquire it. You know?
Yeah, some people just naturally have it. Some of the people that I really like working with just came in with no skill set, essentially, in terms of bartending. They were just nice people to be around, and they knew how to be hospitable, naturally. And then you can teach them how to make drinks. In fact, that's almost the best thing, is you teach them how you want them to do things, but they do the other bit because they do it naturally.
Yeah. I got a great quote from you. From I think this would be around 2012. How old are you now?
50, what year are we in? 57.
Yeah, so it's 2011 maybe then. Bartenders today, this is by the way a Difford guide interview.
That was the truth. I'll have said it, definitely. I might not remember it.
Bartenders today are obsessed with the Japanese hardshake and cutting ice from big blocks. They force history down people's throats and inflict their techniques on customers, putting foam on something for the sake of it. They don't realise that if it takes 20 minutes to make, it's a shit drink, and they never sit the opposite side of the bar, and they won't check the toilets. I feel genuinely seen, Nick, honestly. No. But I mean...
No, I think around then I was travelling loads, and people would throw this shit at you, and I'd be like, no, I just want this. But it was, bartenders whenever I managed bars, when we would open, I would make sure I'd do everything. I'd be in first and I'd leave last. And I'd take the bins out and I'd fucking clean the toilet. If somebody was sick in the toilet, I would go do it first time. And then people are like, why are you doing it? And I'm like, yeah, quite. Why am I doing it? While I'm on the floor, I'm earning you money because I know everybody and I'm selling things. So it's not below me to do this, but, you know, I'm perfectly willing to do it. And I've done it millions of times. So if you're the bar back, tough shit, that's your job. Hopefully you won't have to do that soon. And there was just this, everything. Yeah. I don't think guests want that much knowledge about bartending. No. And I spend my time saying to the bartenders, what's the music that's playing? Have you read the paper today? Did you listen to the radio on the way? Not that they'd probably listen to the radio, whatever. But, you know, do you know anything about current affairs? Or whatever your passion might be, it might be that you're into art. What gallery have you been to recently? Tell them about that. Don't tell them about what's in the glass. Yeah. I mean, if they're interested,
yes,
then you tell them.
Yes.
But there was this mode where everyone had to tell you about their rare fucking Iraq from halfway up a Peruvian fucking mountain and had no idea what the fuck was going on outside.
Yeah. I feel like that period was awkward, and definitely things are better now. But it was almost like, I mean, you remember what it was like, you know, in the 80s and 90s and early noughties, the sort of perception of a bartender and this idea of like, well, when are you going to get a real job? This isn't a proper career. And
it definitely had to go through that.
Yeah.
And it was a sort of like proof of skill set and knowledge and history. And, you know, and I went around the world talking about all that stuff and, you know, because it was true. You know, these people had to be acknowledged that they were skillful people and they were doing something that I think was important.
Yeah. And it's regrettable that had to be
repeating
communicated to every single guest who came in your bar. Yeah, to justify
why you're not a stockbroker or whatever the fuck you should have been. So it needed to go through that. And I think, you know, it's a little bit like nouvelle cuisine in food or something, where they'd gone, chefs were proving they could do all this weird shit that was completely unnecessary and not particularly pleasant to eat. And now it's gone away from that. And it had to go through that. And it has come through that. I mean, I still think, and I understand why bartenders like to be behind the bar. The bar is a really good place to protect yourself. You can dip in and out of conversation, hide when you want to hide, do things when you don't want. I mean, it's a really a safety zone. And, you know, I don't particularly like people. But so the bar, for one point, was really good because I could dip in and out of things. I could pretend I had to do something if I got bored by the conversation. It was a safety thing so that you had this barrier. It's a physical barrier. And so when you're around the other side, your whole body is exposed and you feel slightly naked. But more bartenders should go out on the floor and see what the customer experience was. So working with Dick was amazing because that was all about bartending. But I worked with a guy called John Davey at a place called Shea in 98, 99. Around that time, you probably know.
I do have the dates. I think it's 98. Yeah.
About that sort of time. Yeah. And the bar was great, and I had great bartender. This guy, Danny Smith, who I think is the best bartender I've ever worked with. Maybe we'll talk about him in a minute. But John was this sort of like maitre d' who'd previously been at the Lanesborough. He'd been at a private club in Mayfair or Kensington called Monty's. He'd worked with Anton Mosiman, and they'd previously been at the Lausanne Palace in Switzerland. And
what's that?
It's like a very expensive, beautiful hotel in Lausanne, and I can't remember what the name of the chef. It was a 3-star Michelin sort of place. It's where presidents would go to, and he worked there. So he'd been through this very formal hotel training. And he's like, look, you guys are making great drinks, but you need to sit in the seat of the customer because everything else is shambolic. And he said, so every day you should come in and sit and he used to do this in the restaurant. He'd sit at every seat, going round them and look at every single little detail on the table and look at all the lines of view. So could you see into the pantry and had they left the bread out or something like that? And he said, you need to look at those details in the bar. He said, because the drinks, you're doing them, it's not a problem. But see what the customer, sit here and is the music not quite right? Is the lighting awful? And he went, the bar is only a little fraction of the business. Sit in every seat. Make your bartenders come out and sit. And I think back then you could probably smoke in bars. So you'd be like, where are the ashtrays? Are the ashtrays aligned? And he was like, and that was much more, as important as anything Dick ever said.
I mean, it's about sort of checking yourself and reminding yourself that actually the experience of a guest is of the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's not just what you're putting in that glass and what the garnish looks like. In fact, those things are relatively minor.
They're very minimal.
In the face of the music's too quiet, the light's too bright or too dim, or there's dirt underneath that stool that
Yeah.
you can't normally see unless you sit on this particular
Yeah.
chair.
And that was the thing. And bartenders didn't like, and I still don't think they particularly like it. It's very easy to walk into a shift as a bartender and walk straight behind the bar and not look at anything else and just go, yeah, I've got my station ready. I can make drinks.
Yeah,
But that's it.
As you say, there is a sort of safety barrier there. It's myopic, isn't it? You are literally, physically, and mentally shutting yourself off from the rest of the venue.
I remember the only time I've ever had a fight in a bar was in that horseshoe-shaped bar. And
You were working at the time?
Yeah, I was working, and that horseshoe shape was my zone, and it had a little sort of like one of those little flip-top fucking things at the end of it.
Yeah.
And it was me. I was the only person in there. There was a bar back in the back. And one guy probably said something outrageous to somebody, and he tried to come over the bar at me. And I was suddenly like, this is really weird. I mean, I don't fight particularly. I'm quite gobby. And he came over, and I lost it. I was like, red mist came over me, and I literally attacked the fuck out
Like
of
a
him.
dog who's
and
another
pushed
dog's
him,
come into your
pushed him
territory.
off and chased him down the stairs, pushed him down this big metal staircase. And the bouncers had to come and separate me from this customer. And it was just because he'd come over into what I considered was my safe place. But it's the only time it's ever happened. I'd never advocate that. But you did feel that it was your thing.
Did you see Dick gets physical much? I once witnessed him vault over the bar at the Pink Chihuahua and rugby tackle a guy who
Dick used to love any sign of aggravation. He loved it. He did this brilliant. I mean, he did martial arts constantly. I mean, I'm not sure how good he was. He had a very good trainer, but he was obsessed by martial arts. And yeah, he used to do this thing vaulting over the bar. And he's a little chap, really, and he could get over the bar quite quickly. So yeah, any sign. I mean, we got to the point where we wouldn't tell him if anything was going on because he would.
you knew you'd get physical.
Well, he didn't get. It was like a little terrier. It's like that little dog syndrome or whatever. He'd do the vaulting over the bar and go up to it, and then not a lot would happen. He did a brilliant one time where I think we had panic buttons on the bar. So because it was on 3 floors, each bar had a little button and a panic thing. And I think there was something happened in the basement. And he was upstairs on the first floor with me when this thing happened. And he must have been alerted to it. And we had these metal stairs, so he went vaulting down the first bit, and really fast. And I tried to keep up with it, but I was much younger than him. And then he got to the bottom bit, and it was like a scene out of Inspector Clouseau, the Pink Panther movies, because he got to the bottom, and he sort of like decided to go in with a sort of like slightly karate type thing. So he jumped off the last set of steps like that. And he forgot there was a metal fucking beam like this.
Oh, no.
And he went, bang. His head hit it. And instead of getting into the room where the problem was, he landed up on his back, passed out with concussion. And again, he was brilliant. So he was like that. And I arrived 2 seconds after. I saw it happen. I arrived 2 seconds after him. And it was before you had to do all the health and safety type stuff and all the, so nobody had any idea what to do in a medical situation.
Yeah.
So I think we put him slightly into a recovery position. And then I went up to the bar. I think I probably got a brandy or something. And I came back down and I gave it to him. And it is sort of like, don't be so fucking stupid. You don't give a man in my condition a brandy. But he did enjoy that sort of stuff. I mean, he was great, a great character to be around and work around.
Well, and you followed him through quite a few bars, right? The Flamingo, Detroit, Dick's Bar. Is that correct? I don't have dates on all of that.
Yeah, no, I can't remember which order it was. I worked with him at Fred's on and off for ages. So I dropped out of university and I would keep working the odd shift. I worked part-time and then I started working as a photographer's assistant. And most of it was abroad. So I'd go off abroad for a month or two and I'd come back. And Dick would always employ me wherever he happened to be. So Fred's went on for a long time. I think 5 years or something like that, I think it's around.
But were you seeking employment from him, or was he pulling you in?
No, I would come back. I'd go and see him wherever he happened to be working, and he'd be like, "What you doing?" That's what I could do with a bit of money. And because I knew the drinks he was making, I don't think it changed massively the drinks he was making. I would then be able, and I was quite quick. I was young, so I was quite quick. And I'd turn up on time, and I wasn't quite as messy and fucked up as some of the people. So I would turn up.
The least fucked up and messy of the.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. And so he always employed me wherever I went to. So the Atlantic. I worked in the Atlantic, and Oliver had no idea I was actually working for him. So I worked in Dick's bar there. I think that was the next one. I think it went Fred's, then the Atlantic. I think that's the order it went in. Then there was Flamingo, but I think Detroit might have come before Flamingo. I'm not quite sure the order of things. Pharmacy. I worked with him in all of those things. But
Detroit was before Match.
Yeah.
And then Pharmacy was after Match, right? I think.
Probably. Yeah, Pharmacy would have been after Match because I worked in Pharmacy briefly and only did the odd shift there. And then I worked at the Cobden Club, which would have been 97-ish, I think, around that sort of time. But basically, he would just employ me. Every time I'd come back from travelling, I'd go and see him, and he would eventually find me some work to do with him.
And during this time, you're doing photography and this sort of on and off bartending.
Yeah.
What was your sort of vision of your career trajectory? Were you going to
Well, it had nothing to do with bars.
No.
It had nothing to do with bars. And then, I mean, there were lots of little things that had started to change. Dick was obsessed by Embury, and I think I probably found a copy of that and read it.
Yeah. I remember reading that he got a copy of that very early in his career.
Yeah.
And it sort of shaped his...
Yeah, he never had any other book.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't get books, really.
Yeah.
You get the Savoy and you could get that.
This is David A. Embury's Fine Art of Mixing Drinks.
And he was obsessed with that.
Which was published in the 50s, I think. 57?
And he's a lawyer, isn't he?
Yeah. He wasn't even a bartender, no.
I think Dick liked the way he spoke. I think the tone of voice.
Yeah, he was a great writer.
He liked the tone of voice. And I remember that was what he talked about.
Well, he was quite damning, Embury, of the things he didn't like, which, from what you're describing of Dick, seems to sort of fit the personality type. It's like, if you don't like something, you fucking say it. And Embury was never scared to do that, I guess, because he was a lawyer. And he didn't, he's not a bartender and had no kind of skin in the game as such. So, and the freedom to express himself.
And Dick's best friends were not in the bar business. He didn't have friends who were bartenders. I mean, later on he would have done. But I never remember they were either artists or he had one of his best friends was a little lawyer. And he didn't hang out in the bar world. So I think he liked the fact that he was a voice from outside of the bar world.
Yeah.
And I think it was in Flamingo. So things would have changed. Flamingo would have been after it. The Atlantic was amazing. I loved working in the Atlantic.
Yeah, I mean,
because it was the most impressive venue I'd ever seen.
Yeah, and I mean, at the time, I think it was probably the most sort of renowned bar in the country, right?
But it was so far ahead of anything.
Yeah.
What Oliver did, I mean, if you went around the outside of it, if you were in the main rooms, when the lights were down, it looked insanely beautiful because it was a beautiful original Art Deco interior. When you put the lights up at the end of the shift, it was a cockroach-infested flea pit. And all the back of house areas, the corridors were... disgusting.
There's nothing more humbling.
The glamour of that moment when the lights are down and the music is on, and there was great artwork up in. Oliver used to invest in the YBA, so there was amazing artwork, and there were brilliant people working there.
I do think turning the lights up at the end of a shift is a good sort of humbling punctuation to a night where you've been lauded over and you've made all these drinks and taken all this money and everyone said how beautiful this place is and what a great night they've had, and then you turn the lights up and you're like, no, this is a fucking shithole.
Well, I mean, it was a faded shithole and it was slightly dirty, but none of the celebrities, I mean, it was hugely busy.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't get in it for love or money.
And the celebrity, it was just a celebrity.
Yeah, it was good, but there was no other place like that.
Yeah.
I don't think Britain had a place like that, maybe since the 30s or the 40s or something, because it was huge. It was very sexy looking. The drinks were really good. The food, I can't remember who the chef was, but the food was good. And it was opened late. I think it was a 3 a.m. finish. And it was big. And,
How many did it see?
I reckon the main room must have been a 300 capacity place. It must have had a restaurant that was 70 to 100. And then there was a huge area. The main bar was that one. Dick's Bar. Have you been into what is Dick's Bar now?
Yeah.
Inside Zeddle. That must be another 80 covers.
Yeah.
And it looked like a 5-star hotel, like the Savoy, but it was cool and trendy and, it was mental. I mean, it was so druggy, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, so kind of 5-star luxury, but with an energy.
With an energy that was different to what you got. It had amazing DJs, and it was full of musicians and artists and every celebrity in fashion. It was an amazingly vibrant place. I mean, Fred's was like this horrible concrete box in some ways, but the people who came in there were amazing. But this was the first time those sort of people had a big enough canvas to play on, essentially. And it was amazing.
Yeah, and it was during that sort of Britpop era, I guess, where
It would have been Britpop, and it was also still the big rave thing. So people would leave there, and then you'd go outside the M25 to some mental shed in the middle of a field and stay there for a weekend. So it was all part of that thing. So people would go very glamorous, and then you'd find them in these warehouses at 7 a.m. in the same clothing that they'd come into, and you'd get dressed up to go to the Atlantic.
Would you say that was the bar where you started to get a bit of a reputation and a name for yourself?
No, not at all. I don't think I did that for ages. Ages and ages. I just kept working. So I'd come back and I'd work. And Oliver didn't even know I worked. I mean, I travelled around America with Oliver doing Absolut stuff much later. And I said, I worked for you for fucking 2 years. But I was never on the payroll, I don't think. Again, it was probably cash. And he was like, what? And I said, yeah, I remember all of it. He was like, don't remember it. I mean, you know, for the majority of that time, and I think the first proper job I took was at the Cobden Club where I managed it. And then after that...
Shay you were managing, right?
Shay, that was after the Cobden.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
See, your memory's better than you think.
No, it is. No, I know. I know roughly what bloody order it is. I mean, I do. There were little things where I said, you know, I enjoyed the lifestyle of it, and I enjoyed the people, and I enjoyed that interplay of. I think, you know, bars are great because they are cauldrons where fashion meets art meets advertising meets banking. I mean, I have no where you get this social hub, and that's why bars are really important.
Yes.
And there were great ones for that. So I always enjoyed that bit of it. And I didn't mind doing the work. I was perfectly happy to work really long hours and work hard, and it was physically exhausting. And I did it, you know, I turned up on time. And I left late if I needed to, and I never got too fucked up while I was working.
Yeah.
And so I kept doing it. And then I remember Flamingo's the one that I couldn't remember the name of, because that was off Hanover Square. And I only worked there, I think, for a few months. It wasn't a long time. But I remember that we had on the floor a guy called Bernie, who later ran the Groucho during its sort of like big heyday. And he was our waiter. He previously worked with us in the Atlantic. And he was bonkers, and he just used to go around popping E's in everybody's mouth constantly. He introduced Chris to Amanda in that place by popping an E in each of their mouths and pushing their heads together.
That was their introduction.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is history. Yeah. All those years later. But he literally went, oh, you two should be... And that was what Dick was good at and Bernie was good at, and I became good at, was you meet people and you know who should meet who, and you curate the room.
Yeah,
that's not about bartending. That's about curating people
but managing a venue, and that's a serious skill.
Yeah.
Being able to be like,
and that's what Dick. To be honest, you know, you can talk about the Bramble and the Espresso Martini and the Russian Spring Punch, but he was much better. I think he was a shit bartender. No,
don't worry.
He made very good drinks, but he never worked for more than half an hour behind the bar at any one time. You know, and particularly, I know that I'm like that. But what he was good was putting this person with that person, making sure that person met that person, or making sure that person avoided that person. So he would move people around and introduce them, and you know.
But it's a maitre d' role in a
way. Yeah, and that's what he was. I mean, he would occasionally work behind the bar. Even back in Fred's, he didn't really work behind the bar like a full shift anytime. He was like the manager. And he would be front of house a bit, and then behind the bar. He'd make drinks for his friends. We used to call them FODs, FODs, Friends of Dick, because they never fucking paid and they never tipped. And then we would make all the fucking drinks for people who were paying and earn all the tips, and then Dick would take the tips. But he was really good at that. And it's only later you appreciate it, but what he was doing was just curating everything. And he could, you know, he was great at literally moving up and down through society and making sure nobody felt extrasized. And that was his real skill. I mean, you know, people talk about the drinks, and they are good and they stood the test of time. But that's the bit that I remember him being really great at.
Do you think the drinks stood the test of time partly because of Dick himself?
I think because there was nobody else like him at that time. You know, you had Salvatore and you had Peter, but that was a very different school of bartending, and it wasn't in the cultural milieu. You know, nobody talked about the Savoy or the Lanes or wherever Salvatore happened to be. But if you looked at the Face magazine, Arena, Elle, Vogue, Dick would be in those fucking pages because he was working with the fashion people. And his wife at the time, Vicky, was a big in the fashion business. She was a jeweler who used to do sort of like Alexander McQueen stuff and all that. No, so, and Vivienne Westwood. So he was part of that cool scene. Salvatore and Peter were amazing, but they were sort
Quite
of
a
that
niche
was a sort of, you were
separate
60 if you went in there.
Yeah. It's hotel bars, and it's a different vibe.
It's a very different vibe.
Yeah. And I mean, it's I suppose it's easy to sort of confuse what hotel bars are now, where they're a bit more of a mixed crowd. Whereas back then, it really would have been a certain demographic.
It was a certain demographic went there, and it was amazing because Dick and I used to go there occasionally. And we'd stand up like sore thumbs. I mean, I had bleached blonde peroxide hair and wore silver jeans with holes in them. And we'd go in there, and Peter would know who Dick was or Salvatore, so you'd get treated really well. But everybody in there was in a three-piece suit and essentially almost a tiara on their heads if they were female.
Yeah.
Whereas Dick was in this very cool thing, and the Atlantic was part of that. And that's it. That's what made it exciting. That's why I kept doing it, because I was always excited by the scene of it all. The drinks were slightly secondary. You had to make good drinks. And what he did want you to do is he wanted to give the same service, level of service, and the same quality of drinks as you get in the Savoy, but in a much more punk rock environment where the music was going and you'd have these people. But it was all about you had to give a good drink and you had to give good service. Because that was that little sort of like in or the Army and Navy club, wherever he worked. He understood what service was, but he wanted to have music that was great and cutting edge, and he wanted this party atmosphere. I mean, I think that was another great thing he did was democratizing the ability to get good drinks and good service.
Yes.
And maybe you've not always got it in the Atlantic, but you did get that.
Yeah, and I mean, arguably the best bars today are the ones that, epitomize that, right?
Yeah.
Good drinks, good service, but you can have fun at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's not stuffy, it's not square, it's not, you have to conform to these particular parameters. It's like, it's a fun place, but also there's quality that underpins it.
And he would get upset if people were a bit lax or they got a bit sloppy. Then he'd be pissed off about things not arriving on time or the drinks not looking quite right. But he never cared what you looked like. He never judged you for your appearance, or as long as the drinks went out and the service was good. But
when do you remember yourself starting to take more of an interest in, let's say, sort of cocktails and balancing drinks and maybe creating your own drinks?
Again, you weren't allowed to create your own drinks. Dick made the menus. He did the drinks.
So it's post-Dick when that's
No, it wasn't. There was a moment in the Flamingo, which was the one I couldn't remember, and I don't remember the exact date of the Flamingo, but it was off Hanover Square, and I remember we were in there one night, and I didn't work there that much, and he had a copy of Embry out, and we were looking at the Bacardi cocktail, and he didn't want to make it with Bacardi because Bacardi wasn't the Cuban Bacardi, so Havana Club was closer to it, and we could still get Havana Club Silver, I think, back then. And for some reason, we sat, everyone had buggered off, and Dick and I sat at the bar and just looked at this drink. There's only 3 ingredients. It's fuck all in it.
It's a daiquiri with grenadine, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, daiquiri with grenadine. And the grenadine was probably not very good back then, but it was, but the grenadine wouldn't have been much better, I imagine, when they invented the drink. And we kept trying to make this drink according to the recipe and then varying in the proportions, and it just did not work. And then I think we were probably running out of ice, or the ice had been in the well for a long time. And we made one, and the ice was wet, and the drink suddenly became better. And then it was suddenly like, hang on, if you were in Cuba in 1920s or 30s, the ice would either have been come off a block, or it had been, but it would have had a sheen of water on it. So then we were like, so then we suddenly started making daiquiris with a bit of crushed ice and big rock ice. I mean, we had hot daiquiris, I think, back then. So it was good ice, but you then put a bit of crushed ice in, and that became the thing with the Bacardi cocktail. It was that little bit of crushed ice gives it that extra dilution, which actually makes the drink work. And I remember that being the one drink where suddenly I was like,
there's ways of sort of
there's a
tweaking
science
this.
behind this as well as a recipe, and the recipe doesn't always work unless you understand the history of it and how it would have been made back there and the context. And that was the first time I suddenly remembered going, there's more to this. It's not just make that drink and push it out. There's a subtlety where you can change a 3-ingredient drink by the ice. And nobody had written about ice at that point. It wasn't something that anybody ever talked about. But we sat there for a few hours, and we were smoking a load of weed, obviously, at the time. But we took hours to come to this thing, and then we suddenly went, wow, that's how it works. And then we used to make them. And we were suddenly like, oh, wow, we've got this new drink. Not a new drink, but it actually now tastes good. And I do remember that as a moment where I suddenly went, actually, there's much more to this.
I remember in some of the early source guides, Difford always used to suggest putting a splash of water in a daiquiri. I wonder if...
I think it might have been the same. I mean, Difford and Dick used to hang around together all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and Difford is overlooked, I think.
Well, hopefully he's coming on. He's coming on soon.
Back in the 90s, I mean, he was the only person doing stuff. And those source guides and Difford's guide, whatever, he had he had that little... he had weird little like a precursor of the iPad that he used to wander around with.
Did he?
And he used to... And he used to take recipes.
Oh, like a little...
some kind of little...
touchscreen little
touchscreeny type thing. And he used to come around and gather recipes obsessively.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people forget about him. He was really, really important in the UK.
I know. I was having this conversation with Jake the other day, and because he'd been in and seen Jake at the Star, and we were saying how like very few people would be as influential in the UK bar scene as him.
Yeah, I mean, I would say JD, Dick, him.
I
would say they were the three that changed. There were other people under that
because you have the bartender, you have the operator, and you have the journalist.
But nobody. I mean, before that, did you ever work with Ed Sullivan? The Evening Stand-Up.
No, I know the name, but
he was the guy that, when there weren't big fucking 50 best awards, but the Evening Standard was the award you wanted in London, and you used to get a blue plaque for it. I can't remember. And I remember at Shea when we won that a couple of years in a row, that was the biggest thing you could win. And Ed was this really divisive, old school Fleet Street style of journalist. I mean, certainly not politically correct in any way. I mean, it was atrocious.
But then the Class magazine came along.
But Class magazine, and that was, it was for people working behind the bar.
Yeah.
And Dick used to write a column in it every month, and it was amazing.
Yeah, it did change it, and the source guides as well. I mean, down in darkest Cornwall, where I was growing up, and I started bartending around 2000, 2001, which is about the year the first source guide came out, I think. And that was just, internet existed, obviously, but there really wasn't a resource. There were forums and things like that, Drink Boy and all this sort of thing. But there wasn't a printed resource quite like that, especially with colour photography.
Yeah. And he really cared about it.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, he used to be really annoying. I mean, he'd come into your bar and be like, oh, no. Fuck, he's going to bore us and fucking be tedious. But had he not documented things, there are drinks that I've made that I can't remember them. But they will be in those guides. They'll have won competitions, and I have no memory.
What's the most... is there any drinks you've invented that are pretty well known or have stood the test of time or anything? What's the one you're most proud of? Is there anything in particular that you've...
No, not really. I mean, no. I'll be completely honest, no. There's nothing that I've ever made that I would drink again, particularly in a hurry. But... introducing ideas of how you might do drinking, which we may come on to in a minute, or the spirits that I've made and things like that. That changing that bit.
Yep.
But the drinks, no.
So introducing ideas of how, then unpack that a little bit.
Well, I remember sort of like America was always seen as this shining light of cocktails, and I got really fucked off by that, and deliberately became this sweary Britpop.
Fucked off because you didn't think it was all it's cracked up to be, or just out of principle of it being America?
I never... I mean, I used to go see Sasha a lot, and I loved Sasha, and I used to go into the original Milk and Honey, and I loved the drinks he made. But I was never a fan of American drinks. They always tasted too sweet. And that's, and I understand it's a different palate. And, in America, you can't get a raspberry that tastes like a raspberry, or raspberry flavour tastes like a slush machine or whatever.
Yeah.
And, and I've done weird things for brands where you understand that their palate is different because of how they appreciate flavour and the flavours that are available to them. But I didn't understand that at the time. I was like, your drinks are shit. And
that cultural difference is
they would go,
though.
the cocktail is American, and the cocktail is American, and,
just keep forcing that down your throat.
Force it down your throat. And I was like, oh, fuck you.
Yeah.
And then when I discovered, when sort of like eBay started, I obsessively bought cocktail books online. So there was
the golden age of buying cocktail books.
Yeah, there was me, Greg Baum, and Mauro. And I didn't know them at the time, but I would bid on things, and those two would always beat me.
Jeff Maston was probably collecting a lot of books at that point.
Yeah, but that was before, because Greg was before him, wasn't he?
Yeah, Greg was before him.
So Greg was the one. Greg was buying every copy of everything, and occasionally I would get copies.
He owns like 50 copies of Bottoms Up. It's like, he basically created a false economy for that one book because he owns so many.
Yeah. So I used to buy those, and then there were things like William Terrington's book about punch.
Yes.
And suddenly I was like, there was this whole...
Is that the Flowing Bowl? Is that
No, which one's his? His is something in dainty drinks, isn't it?
Yeah, something cups and dainty drinks.
Yeah, cooling cups and dainty drinks. So that, and then there's the other one, which is Flowing Bowl. And then there's Cups and Their Customers that's just before that, which I think is 1861 or something. It has a beautiful engraving of a glass on the inside with a borage flower.
Yeah, that's it.
And suddenly I sort of like read these books and went, we've been making mixed drinks in Europe for centuries. And I liked that. So I suddenly not only did I have the backup to go to America, I said, well, you were still our colony.
Yeah.
And I did it in this very, awful way. And, people quite enjoyed the fact that I'd go out and lambast Americans for they didn't invent the cocktail.
Yeah.
And, we've been drinking. And I actually like those drinks. So I like the idea that introducing punch as a thing.
Yes.
And then Dave obviously came up with an amazing, and my research on it was reading 3 books and taking those recipes and doing them. His research was Dave Wondrich style research. But I enjoyed that. And I think, again, that was at that time where all the nightclubs like Aura and things, it was all about the big bottle of vodka coming out with sparklers, and you got those awful soggy strawberries next to it, and the mixers were dreadful, and you were paying a fortune for it. And I didn't like, I'd suddenly decided actually I quite like bartending and I liked the bar world. And I found that demeaning, that basically the bartender's job was literally to load an ice bucket full of garnish and send out a bottle of vodka, and people were paying hundreds of quid for it. And I liked that. I understood why, if you're buying that, you want to be Johnny Big Bollocks and go, I'm the host or whatever, I'm serving these drinks to you. And the punch to me was the ideal solution. The bartender could exhibit their craft, create this beautifully elegant drink, and yet the customer could serve their guests, or you could serve their guests for them. So it sort of like fulfilled both roles. And so I liked that sort of thing.
But there's a lot of baggage with the punch, right? It felt like a kind of 80s thing where people had just slopped in anything that
Yeah,
like a
yeah. I mean, it took a long time to convince people.
Yeah, punch was almost like shorthand for this is going to be shit,
Yeah, but it isn't.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly elegant drink.
Yeah, yeah.
And then obviously when you start reading those things, suddenly you're like, well, actually, they were doing molecular stuff. They were making milk punch, all these things that hadn't occurred. So I liked that and the idea of doing that.
And the conviviality of it. And the
conviviality of it, and the fact you can keep drinking and drinking and drinking. We're drinking in the daytime martinis. Perhaps that's not the best thing. But a punch bowl would have been the perfect thing because you can just keep drinking it.
Yeah.
But it takes you a long time to drink. And so I liked the idea of introducing that. And I did like the idea of standing up for Europe.
So where did you introduce that?
That came in at Hawksmoor in 2006. Six, is it? Yeah, 6. 6.
You do have some dates.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, so that was 2006. So I think I've been playing around with that idea, and I've been going on the road talking about, I did a lot of stuff at Beefy, so I'd be going around wearing those Union Jack shirts, shouting at Americans. And then that suddenly I had this thing to back it up, going, we have this thing, and all us Europeans should be proud of this.
You seem to start to shift into restaurant bars. Shay was a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
Hawksmoor, obviously a restaurant, albeit with a sort of separate bar bit.
Yeah.
Because this is the Spitalfields one, the original one, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously your sort of collaborations with Mark Hicks going on. Was that a sort of conscious thing to sort of shift towards restaurant and food environments away from...
I don't think they're separable. I mean, well, I do think they're separate. I think they're very similar, and I like kitchens, and I like the rigor in which, it's the opposite of how I may appear, but I do like the rigor of how the chefs work. And Shay had a restaurant. I didn't really like the chefs there. They were sort of like Michelin's. They were awful, bullying, sort of like that chef that doesn't exist anymore, thankfully. People were scared to go down and talk to them. But I managed to get on with them somehow. I don't know how, but I used to go down and talk to them, and I could get things out of them. And then we opened Cicconi's. So Shay and then Cicconi's came along at the same time, owned by the same people. And we opened Cicconi's, and we did it with Giorgio Locatelli originally. And I knew Giorgio from Fred's days. I introduced him to his wife in Fred's. And
How many marriages came out of that?
And I'd known Giorgio for a long time. I used to go eat in Zafferano, and he had the red pepper in. So I always used to get on with chefs. And you always used to end up drinking with chefs because they always used to go out to the same places, these late night places. You'd always bump into Hicks or Corrigan or Giorgio.
I've drunk with a lot of chefs over the
Fergus
years.
was obviously another one.
And they like a drink often.
And they do like a drink.
And they like and also oftentimes a great chef, they may be a master of the kitchen, but there's a lot about bars that I think it's sort of alien to them. They don't quite understand certain things, and obviously it depends on the chef, and some chefs are very well clued up on spirits. But oftentimes, like, even simple things like balancing sours, you're like, this is how we do it, this is the formula for it. And they're like, oh, okay. And you're like, oh, yeah, I would have thought you'd know that because you can make a vinaigrette or whatever.
But restaurants didn't have good bars back then.
Yeah.
I mean, again, if I go back to Shea, Petrus opened just up the road. So Gordon used to come around a lot, and Marcus Waring also used to come and drink in the bar. And I used to go up there to eat occasionally. And, their bartender was making drinks with Smirnoff.
Yeah.
Smirnoff Red. And I was like, Gordon, the first thing your guests do when they walk in your restaurant, they'll have a martini. And your bartender is going to pick up the cheapest vodka in the world, essentially. I'm not slagging it off, maybe. But basically, that, they see that. Yeah. You should be using something better than that and making a better drink. And they'd obviously roll out the cognac trolley at the end, but they had no idea.
That was it. There's sort of apology at the end.
The beginning was like this thing, like they were making dreadful drinks.
Yeah. I mean, my early bartending career went through that kind of environment as well. I really, for the first part, apart from working in some pubs, I only really ever worked in restaurants until I moved to London and started opening my own bars. And it was always the same challenge of like, these drinks need to match the quality of the food they're serving. I worked at Jamie Oliver's place 15 in Cornwall, another pretty high-end restaurant down in Cornwall before that. And, there was a lot of focus and attention given to the food and the quality of it. And getting owners and managers on board with, look, we need to put time and effort into ensuring the cocktails, A, taste good, B, are consistent, and C, have some sort of harmony with the food offering, whether it be that through ingredients or, maybe not food pairing, but because it's difficult to serve wine in that respect. Yeah. But nevertheless, something that sort of synergizes with the food. And
the bar offerings were always the last thing they thought of. And they never spent money on the bar.
And coffee, by the way, is the last sort of bastion of that, the last ignored component of the highest end restaurants in the world. It's changing now, but for years it was such a problem. And I remember being at the Fat Duck about 9 years ago, and they were still using Espresso machines. I don't know what the situation is now, but so many high-end restaurants were like, this needs to be convenient, it needs to be compact, it needs to be consistent, which of course Espresso machines are consistently pretty shit. And it's like, come on, and it's changed, like it really has. You do tend to get, both in terms of cocktails and tea and coffee in the best restaurants.
It's now really good.
Yeah.
No, it is, but it was an afterthought back then.
Yeah.
But I got on with the chefs. I liked the chefs. And I liked the way they worked. And I also liked, again, people didn't in bars do mise en place. Or, we're drinking a martini. But they didn't do their mise en place in a bar. You come in, you cut a lemon. And that was about it. A lime.
No, limes and lemon.
But you would never cut enough.
That was it. It's I interviewed Toby Cicchini a few weeks ago, and I was rereading his book, and so many times in that book, it's like I was cutting limes.
But that's all you did. And again, when you work with chefs, they don't ever cook it. I mean, if you go to Per Se or the French Laundry, they're proud of the fact they go out and pick the herb and then cook it and blah. But most of it is pre-done and finished in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And when you know kitchens, you look at how they work, and they're in there from 6 a.m. They're making things to make things later. And all they're doing during that 3-hour window of service at lunch and 5 in the evening is finishing things.
It's dispense.
It's finishing stuff and making it good and making it the best it can.
Yeah.
Bartending was all literally like on the hoof. It's like, oh, we need another lemon. Why the hell are you doing that at that time? And so I like that kitchen discipline, and I like their use of ingredients, and also their willingness to explore ingredients that weren't necessarily.
Yeah.
So those things came through kitchens before they did into bars. So things like bergamot, I first tasted with Mark in a kitchen. It was not a product you could find in a bar.
Yeah.
So chefs always got these ingredients ahead of
fake bergamot and Earl Grey tea.
Yeah. So I mean, and I just I like the company of chefs.
So
they're slightly grumpy.
I've had
antisocial.
I've had Kev Armstrong on, and I've had Toby on, and both of them pretty anti-batching. Though both of them, in fairness, and to give them the true sort of true to what they said, in the right context, they do encourage it.
Yeah.
What's your take on it?
I think it's a brilliant thing. And I think, again, it comes back to ego slightly. And I do love going, and we've probably talked about this, I do love going into Dukes and seeing them make me. I love that process. I love going to Connells and seeing the skill of Aggo or their staff doing that lifted pour. And so there's a skill there that I think is amazing, and that theatre is amazing. But if that theatre comes at the cost of a bad drink, then I don't want the fucking theatre. And what batching can do, and again, chefs, and it's different now, there are far too many open kitchens for my fucking liking. I don't want to see some fat, hairy arsehole slapping my food onto the grill. You know what I mean? In his leather apron.
Celebrity chefs and TV that have kind of made that happen.
But celebrity chefs used to work in kitchens that were enclosed, and they didn't even know where the dining room was.
Yeah, what I mean is when people started to get an insight into kitchens through TV, suddenly kitchens, the walls were removed,
But most of the chefs that I like don't care about being seen.
No.
They go in, they do a job, and what they care about is what's on that plate.
Yeah, but I don't know if open kitchens are down to chef egos. I mean, sometimes, sure. But I think actually it's more down to consumer.
Wanting, yeah, they want to look through the peephole. But I like the idea that chefs get on, do it, deliver a product, and it's got to hit A+. I mean, if they're good at what they do. And there is the ego is almost contained within the kitchen or after service, where the chef might walk around and say hello to people and goes, oh, that was amazing. So therefore, doing all the prep ahead of time and making sure that last minute bit is perfect is why I think batching or part batching or whatever is good for bars. Because you look at a lot of bars and you see them struggling, maybe through skill, or maybe there's too many people in the bar, or the menu is too complicated, or whatever, or they're trying to do too much. And all the drinks are compromised because it starts to fall apart. Kitchens don't fall apart in that way because they're already prepped.
Yeah.
Bars, quite often, you witness them falling apart. Not the best bars, but you witness them falling apart in front of your eyes because they've decided they want to have a foam on a drink. And then they run out of foam. Then they're making a foam and it doesn't work. So the more you can cut down that, and I don't want to never see the beauty of a martini being stirred. Or that noise of a shake. I mean, I like that noise.
What about measuring? I mean, do you think there's something from a customer point of view where the visually seeing the measuring of the ingredients communicates some skill, it communicates some accuracy, some intention in the production of that drink?
It does. But again, look at the average bar.
Yeah.
How many people are sitting at the bar compared to how many people are sitting at tables? I would imagine in most places, apart from, you go to those lovely bars in Japan where everybody sits at the bar. But there's not many of those in London.
20-80.
There's not many of those in...
20% of the bar, 20% within eye line of the bar, 80% not.
Yeah, most people cannot see the bar for love or money. And also, they're going there to socialise, and therefore they're not even looking at what you're doing. They're there to have a chat and a good time.
Yeah.
And then, Jay, a really cold, good, or if it's a cold drink, it's supposed to be a cold drink, a really good cold drink that arrives quickly. And therefore, the way you can do that is by part batching or whatever. Not everything has to be. For those 6 who are sitting at the bar, make them the drink in front of them, measure it, show them the skill you have.
Yeah, it's like turning your indicators on when there's no other car around.
Yeah.
It's kind of pointless, right? Yeah. So if someone cannot see you making the drink, why are you bothering going through all of those specific
And the bar will be against that ridiculous state. I mean, I remember going, I wasn't going to talk about this, but I was going to do an article with Trevor from St. John. And he's a curmudgeonly, grumpy old fucker. And I'm quite like that. And we were going to write for, I can't remember the magazine, where we were basically like the Dudley Moore and Peter Cook characters who sat on the bench moaning about the world. Like, and I eventually said I can't write it because it was awful what we were writing about these places. And the intention of the article was that you go round bars, taste their drinks, and then we'd always go back to see Dick at Pink Chihuahua, I think he was at that point, and he would make us a martini or a vermouth and soda, and we'd always enjoy that better. So we'd already set it up to be like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just remember we wandered around, and so I think the first time we did it, I let the people know we were going to come in and do this thing. And I said, I almost set it up saying, we want to be critical because it's the point of the article. And we went to a bar, and I won't name the bar, but it was a bar that at one point had that Wales.
I know the bar.
You know the bar I'm talking about. Yeah. We went to a few others, And to be honest, the first bar we went to was actually your bar around the corner from here.
Whistling shop.
Yeah. And Ryan might have still been working. And we went in there and we had a drink made with Ardbeg, if I remember correctly. And
Sounds like
that was the only drink on that evening that we liked that was as good or better than what Dick was going to make us. And we went to a few other venues and we were appalled by everything. But there was one, so the whole point was to go to the bar, and we believe the bartender was the interaction point. And we went to one of them around the corner from here, and there was 15 seats at the bar. And I'd spoken to the PR and said, I'm coming in, and who I'm coming in with.
I think I know where
And
you're
we
going
got
with
to that bar, and we went towards the bar to sit down. They said, no, you can't sit at the bar. You'll disturb our bartender.
Yeah, I've been told I can't sit at that bar before as well.
And we were like, well, why have you put fucking seats at the bar?
Yeah, yeah.
And then they sat us in the corner, and Trevor went mental. It was so dark, we couldn't see anything. And we basically said, give us whatever you think is your thing. And these drinks arrived. And the drink was not that bad. Trevor got one, and he couldn't see it. And it had huge blades of mace on the top of it. And Trevor's went like that and swallowed a blade of mace, essentially. And it caught in his throat. He was chewing it, and then obviously it's mace. And he was like that, and spat it out. And we got to write it. But it's just that idea that you can't sit at the bar. If you don't want to sit at the bar, don't want people to sit at the bar, don't put a fucking bar in.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't have minded that place if they'd not put the bar in, or they'd put the bar behind.
Put it behind a wall, yeah.
Put it behind a wall,
yeah.
let him get on doing what he's doing, let him make those things.
Don't give me the illusion that I can sit at a bar and then...
Because I love sitting at bars. I don't like sitting at tables. The bar is the place I want to sit.
Well, I remember going in that bar once, this bar that we're not going to name, but probably most people know what we're talking about. I remember going in that bar once and had a similar experience without the mace, but tried to sit at the bar, which was empty of bar stools and this sort of thing, and being told no. And I came out, and this was back when I was using Twitter, and I tweeted, like, a bar is not a bar if you can't sit at the bar, especially if there's bar stools there.
And there's a bartender behind it.
And there's a bartender behind it, and you're right. Like, I like sitting at the bars. There's an energy there that's slightly different to the rest of the room. You know. By the way, your new bar does not have bar stools, does it?
No, it doesn't really have room for them.
No.
New bar.
We'll get onto that in a bit. We'll get.
Again, coming back to the batching thing, I think batching can help, and I think with a drink like this, a martini, there is a beauty in seeing Aggo making it, or going down to Duke's and having that style, but there is also a consistency that I can get by doing it this way. I can completely control temperature and dilution, 100%. And, I put it in the freezer and it sits at minus 18. Beautiful temperature for it. By the time it hits the table, it's minus 12. It doesn't degrade. I completely control every element of it. And to be honest, when you're shaking or stirring, you can't quite do that. When you're really good, it's beautiful to watch.
Sure.
But so I think for consistency...
What do you think about the argument that, well, that's great, and for your consistency, that's perfect. I know I'm going to get the same drink every time, but what about if I want to customize that drink? I don't want to use Hepple gin. Sacrilege, I know. I want to use Tanqueray instead.
It'd be very bizarre to say that.
But let's imagine a scenario like that.
But then, yes, you should have the skill set. But again, think of like the dynamic of a bar. Say you're a 100 cover bar and you've got 6 people at the majority of people just order a drink and they want that drink. And again, most bars are pushing their signature cocktails.
But is that a great thing? Like,
we can get onto that in a minute. But so therefore, yes, I am that customer. I will come in, and if I see your menu and it says martini made with X, I will, and they might not have Hepple, I might say, okay, I'd like my Plymouth martini like this. You should be able to do that, but that isn't the majority of your service. So therefore, everything that is the majority of your service, and you can look at your spreadsheets and check what drinks we sell the most of, batch that fucker.
Like the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
Batch 80%.
And then when I come in, or you come in and say, I like my martini like X, you have enough time to do that, and you make it well. But the majority of people get this amazing quality drink because you have prepped and you've done your mise en place, and most people are sitting at seats and don't know that much about it and are getting what you want to give them, and you're giving it really, really well. That's where I say not everything should be made a la minute. Certainly martinis, Negronis, old-fashioned, whatever, almost all those stirred drinks are better served differently.
Yeah. The only problem with those particular drinks is they tend to be the drinks where people...
That you can customize the most?
Yeah.
You can still change it. Yeah. Again...
You just make it a la minute for the people
you make it a la minute for the ones who want it a la minute. You could also have... Again, if you look at your spreadsheets, you can go, well, these are the most popular gins that people are choosing.
Yes.
Put those in the freezer. Have the vermouth and the dilution chilled, and mix that.
Yeah.
You pick up 2 bottles.
I think that's more or less what they're doing at Satan's Whiskers. They've
Yeah.
got a hell of a lot of freezer space there.
Yeah.
And they basically freeze all of the most common calls.
Yeah. And Satan's is great. And I love going to Satan's because you can order drinks that you can't get in other places.
Yeah.
And you can ask for a daiquiri made with that rum, and they'll understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But again, if I'm sitting at the seat there, I want that drink. And they do it. But they're a rarity.
Yes.
They're the exception to the rule of it, not the rule.
Yeah. No.
And, again, Toby's Bar is the exception to the rule, I think. So I think for the majority of places, bits of batching are better for the customer experience. Not the bartender's ego, but the customer experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want a whiskey?
Yeah, have we finished the martini?
We haven't finished it.
Well, let's finish the martini then.
How much? I mean, we're pouring it out of a massive Yeti into
Yeah,
small glasses, so it's difficult to know how much martini you're
No, I
actually drinking.
made about 550 mil, I think.
Okay. So,
Not a huge amount.
Yeah. Okay. With the dilution and everything.
With
so,
dilution,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So it's
Yeah.
child's play.
So yeah, I believe in batching. And again, and also again, if you're trying to disseminate knowledge to consumers think that they have to make drinks how bartenders make drinks. So they'll go into Satan's Whiskers, they'll see those incredibly skillful bartenders execute 30 drinks very quickly, and they're all 30 different drinks, and they make them a la minute. If you're a home consumer, you don't have that skill set, you don't have the setup, you don't have the ISO, etc. And therefore, having a few drinks that you can have in your fridge or your freezer that are ready to go, that's child's play, and it's easy to do. But you make them ahead of time. And so in my fridge, I'm always having Negronis, and in my freezer, I always have martinis ready to go. And I always have frozen products. So it just makes things easier.
Yes, it does. Do you but for someone like you who's made thousands and thousands of drinks, and you've picked up a jigger, God knows how many times, and you recognise that actually being able to control all the variables, balance, dilution, temperature, is actually all you need at this point in your life, because fuck picking up a jigger and a shaker if you don't have to. But for a home consumer, and indeed that same consumer in a bar environment, is there something about, I don't want to labour this point too much, but is there something about the sort of measurement of it, the kind of experimental side of it?
And I think there's fun to be had doing that.
Yeah.
But again, if I were a home consumer who was not a bartender, I would not make the drinks as my guests arrived.
Yeah.
Because making 20 drinks,
fucking big mistake.
making 20 drinks in a home kitchen to order means you'll never fucking cook.
Devastation.
You won't cook the food.
No, it's going to be...
Dinner's going to be at midnight, and
I'm
that's,
amazed how much mess you can make doing
I mean,
things like
I think that everybody should learn how to use the tools before they stop using the tools,
Yeah, I think that's the
and
thing.
learn the process. And again, the same with being a chef. Learn how to peel a potato, chop a potato. It's that you learn the skill sets, then you can abandon it slightly,
Yes.
and understand why doing it like this is better.
It's like
in this
learning the
context.
classics before creating cocktails,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
You have to go through the sort of rites of passage
Yeah.
to understand why you no longer need to do
So I want everyone to be able to use a jigger. I want everyone to be able to free pour. I know that you can do that at Satan's Whiskers, but not many people can do that like they do at Satan's Whiskers.
Yeah.
But you still need to understand the fundamentals.
Working with Hawksmoor, Hicks, were there different sort of considerations in terms of the cocktail list, because there was this sort of more, it's ostensibly a restaurant with a bar?
I mean, Hawksmoor was the first one, and I only got involved in that because I knew Will's mum, Fiona, the drinks writer. And they had green and red, which I thought was amazing.
Which was green and red theirs, was it?
Green and red was there. So they had the Red Church bar before, and I'd met them in the Red Church because Fiona had asked me to go round there. And then they opened Green and Red with Henry and Dre, and they had a stellar bartender set at that point. And then they had Danny Smith, which we should talk about him, and they had Charles Vexnat. They had these amazing bartenders, and it was way ahead of its time.
Yeah. Great bar.
But it slightly imploded because of how they were managing it in some ways. Service charge was an issue. And then they found this site.
Just for anyone's not aware, by the way, green and red, Mexican bar, not far from here, right?
Not far, yeah, it was on Bethnal Green Road. It's now
Red Church Street.
probably a brew dog.
Hence the name. The name is genius.
Yeah.
It's the Mexican flag.
Yeah.
And it's also on Red Church Street and Bethnal Green Road.
Yeah. So no, really good. I mean, great name, great bartenders, great drinks. Actually, really good food considering how far ahead they were.
Stefan was there for a while.
Stefan was there. Davide was there.
Yeah.
I mean, a great lot of people there. It just didn't quite work at that time. That part of Bethnal Green Road was just beyond Shoreditch.
Yeah.
You'd go, what's the name of it? There was Les Trois Garçons, and then they had a bar behind it. Do you ever go to Les Trois Garçons? Was like the three gay interior designers who had this place on Bethnal Green Road about a block earlier.
Right.
So where Shoreditch House is now,
Yeah.
1 block further on. In fact, it's where the pub is now. Patrick's place. Chef Patrick. One Club Row.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that was, I think, Les Trois Garçons.
Right.
Then they had this big barn behind it. And then Green Road was just 1 block and it never quite worked. And then Fiona came to me and said they found this other site. And I lived in that area. I'd always known that area. And would you like to do it?
Where were you at the time?
I wasn't anywhere. I was doing consultancy stuff. I was doing stuff for brands and things, but that was never that fluid. So I was like, yeah, I'll give it a go. And I went around and met them. And I'd met them before, and they're lovely, Will and Hugh. I really liked them. I wasn't very nice to them. And they had the site on Commercial Street, is it?
Yeah.
And it had been a Turkish kebab shop,
Had it?
essentially.
That
But-
entire
but one of the-
surely
but one
the
of-
entire thing.
No, but we didn't own the basement then,
Right.
and we didn't own all of the ground, from my memory. So it's completely changed.
Some fucking kebab shop.
So it had one of those Turkish grills, the Yoka Batty ones or whatever. And so they wanted to call it South 61 and do burgers. Because we had, I think it was a 40 grand budget, so fuck all. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do steak. I knew Tim from the Ginger Pig. I used to go to Borough Market.
So
And
you suggested doing
so I knew Tim quite well. I'd been up to the farm to see the cattle. I used to go see him in Borough Market on a Saturday and talk to him about meat and because I liked food. Always liked food. And he'd won like Observer Food Producer of the Year, and it was quite a big thing to win that. And I said, nobody's doing English steak in England. And if you go to Luger's in America, it's all about USDA Prime, but it's all about American steak, and then the really Argentinian things. And I said, you're in an area, because I'd previously, when Shea was full of city boys, but they all came from the city. And I said, I think we can do steak, British steak, proudly grass-fed British steak, with really good wine and really good cocktails. But I'm not doing burgers. It was burgers and po' boys they wanted to do.
Po' boys.
Yeah. And we started a little bit like that because there was a compromise. And I was an arsehole and a complete dictator. And I went, no, fuck your idea. And it basically went, we're doing steak. And then we got reviewed really quickly.
How did you have so much clout within the sort of operations of this thing?
Because they were young and naive and easily bullied by somebody like me. I mean, I was awful. I mean, I freely admit it. But I was in there 6 days a week from morning till the end. I did every service all the time. And I served every plate. I mean, I was dreadful. But I was obsessed by it. And I basically, again, I changed the point system on tips. So I was like, I want everybody to earn tips. So it's like a 2-to-1 ratio rather than a 10-to-1, which was the traditional thing. So if you were the kitchen porter, you got half as much as I got as the manager, essentially. So everybody got paid really well. And I said, look, we're not having uniforms. You know, I look like I look. So I'm like, I'm not wearing a fucking suit to come and do this job. And I said, look, when you look like this, you have to over-deliver, because if we're going to be a high-end-ish restaurant, it was an expensive price point.
Was that quite revolutionary at the time then, the sort of not wearing a black shirt?
Yeah, I mean, they all wanted everybody to be in uniform, and I said, no, I don't want that. I want people to be free. But in order to be free, you've got to deliver 25% better service, because these guys who are going to come in from the guys from the city, you're going to come in, look at you and go, you're going to be sloppy.
Yeah.
So therefore, you have to overachieve in order to do it.
So it sort of engenders this attitude of like correction.
Yeah, and so I was like, wear what you like, essentially, without it being...
Was anyone anywhere else doing that at the time?
I don't think so. You know, I think Hawksmoor's amazing.
But it's just par for the course now, right?
Yeah, it's part of the course. So I was like, but if you're going to be able to be free to do that, then you do better than you would do in a uniform. You have to overcompensate.
Yeah, you're almost like handicapping them a little bit to sort of make them overachieve.
Yeah. But then you can come in wearing a piercing and you can look how you want and you don't have to wear a uniform. And you can't be scruffy and smelly, essentially, with the smelly.
Yeah.
You can't be smelly
Yeah.
and dirty, but you can be free and express yourself. Yeah, but I mean, I was dreadful in that.
How long were you there for?
I think about 2 years. I mean, I didn't get involved in any of the other sites until they opened New York. And I sort of like threw my toys out the pram slightly. I just got bored. But I was obsessed by it. I mean, I would throw the chef out the kitchen and cook people's food for them if he did it wrong. I was you know, I mean, I was fiercely protective of all my staff. But if they didn't deliver what I wanted, I was obsessed by it. And obviously, we'd set it up on such a small budget that there were really, I mean, operationally, it was a really difficult site to work because it suddenly took off. And we didn't have a kitchen that could produce it. We didn't have any, I mean, the kitchen was the size of a toilet. It was awful. And we were cooking 200 steaks and having to rest them. And they were balancing on shells and things.
Oh, wow.
But I used to get really upset if somebody fucked it off. So I'd tell the kitchen to fuck off and go out, and I'd go and cook people's food for them. Or if they did it repeatedly. So again, and it's difficult juggling.
Did you have equity in it?
No.
What, have you ever been as obsessed over anything else as that?
No, it drove me insane after a while. I went into a hole of lunacy because I was in there constantly. I mean, you know, but Tim, my manager, who's still their ops director, and brilliant guy, is still there, and he got equity when they sold, and they were really good, Will and Hugh, about that. I left, I think, about a year earlier than getting a payout of a huge amount of money, but I just couldn't do it. I did 2, maybe 3 proper winters there when the city was rocking, and in the end, I just couldn't do it.
You're just burning out with the sort of...
I was burning out, and I was obsessed by every single little thing,
which is it's
and
unsustainable.
I was going mental. Yeah. And
do you think that was partly a product of not having, you know, a management structure where you could, I guess,
it wasn't big enough to have a management structure.
Yeah,
it wasn't enough, and also I didn't trust that it would happen how I wanted it to happen.
But without being able to delegate that kind of thing, then you're interested in literally like the fucking, you know, the toilet roll holders.
Yeah, I used to do everything.
It's like,
but Will and Hugh were like that. I mean, they're amazing, and you know, we had a falling out when I left. Like, they tried to be much nicer to me than I deserved. They brought in an ops director because they wanted to expand, and I was like, why are you trying to expand? We're making so much money on your 40 grand investment. Just be fucking happy.
Was it really that little? I mean, it can't have looked anything like what it looks like now.
No, it didn't look like that. But the tables were all, you know, when they used to come in, I used to moan about it, saying, look, invest some more money in bed. We were making a lot of money.
When did they do the New York one then? That was the second one, was it?
No, New York was much later.
So when did they do... Because I felt to me like one was there for a long time before any other ones happened.
It did. That I think maybe Covent Garden was the second.
Yeah, so that was like, what, 2015, 2016?
No, it was earlier than that.
Was it?
I think they had ideas for Covent Garden. They brought in an ops director. And as I say, I was not particularly pleasant at that time. And I did everything with the manual book. So I took reservations on the manual book. I knew everybody's telephone number. I named the tables. So there was Robert De Niro and Al Pacino and all these really good... And then there was Christopher Biggins and Timmy Mallet, I think, for the bad tape.
Quite a cast of characters.
And so if you were a good customer or I liked you...
Oh, I see. So based on the sort of...
we would tell them the name of the table and say, when you phone up to book, say you'd like Robert De Niro or Al Pacino. And if you knew those names, you'd get them. If we thought you were a bad customer, we'd write Timmy Mallet next to your name.
I mean...
But Will and Hugh, as the owners, always got Timmy Mallet. And they used to go, why are you putting them on the shit table? I said, because it's a shit table. There should not be any shit tables at this price point.
That's right. You need to expose them.
They do it properly now.
Expose them.
But I was like, you're sitting by the door in the winter because there's no draft exclusion and you get the rain blowing in on your fucking 50 quid steak. So you're always going to have that table. And they were like, why can't we have the nice tables? I'm like, because I'm making money.
Because we know the nice table's nice.
Yeah.
The bad table's the one we need to fix.
Yeah.
So see what that's like.
They always got that. I mean, I was not nice to them, but they were really nice. At the end, they were like, look, you know, they would start to do consultancy stuff. So they said, look, why don't you do this with us and just drip in and out? And I was just like, I'm over it all. You know, I chewed up the operations director, made him eat his pens font and made him cry in our first meeting. I was awful.
Literally made him eat his pencil.
Yeah, he was literally, we were in it. And I was like, you've come in here to literally shave a millimetre off my toilet roll so you can fuck off. I mean, I was awful. But again, it was I think that was like, I think I'd won the Tales of the Cocktail Best Bartender. Again, they were really cool. So I could travel wherever I wanted to. And I was just churning things out and traveling and burning myself up. And believed in it slightly too much and was awful.
I saw Jonathan Downey last night. You know, I was going to his restaurant Town, which is great. And I told him I'd just been to see you at your new place, and that I was interviewing this morning. He said, "I'll remind him of this story." So it's the 30th of June 2007, which is the night before the smoking ban kicked in for the UK. Okay, Scotland was a little bit earlier.
So this is in Hawksmoor. He didn't talk about this.
This is in Hawksmoor. I was like, "You sure you want me to say this?"
Oh yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah."
Did he get his box out?
You can do that. So he said he lit up a
cigarette that wasn't
let's
a cigarette.
call it a cigarette that wasn't a cigarette, and it wasn't marijuana, right?
No, I know what it was.
It was opium, and started smoking it in Hawksmoor, and he said that you were not best pleased at all.
No, I wasn't. I remember that story totally because he came in with Kate Spicer, John Beach.
It's funny how great everyone's memory
Kate
is.
Spicer's brother, I think.
He mentioned Kate Spicer as well. It's incredible how good everyone's memory is.
And he came in after hours essentially. I mean, and again, I'm not anti smoking cigarettes that aren't necessarily cigarettes. But what I didn't, and it was that I don't think we ever had properly smoking in there. I can't remember. And I'm a smoker, so I'm not going to be anti-smoking. But he came in late, wasn't eating, and wanted a drink. And I'd known John and him and Kate for a long time. So I said, look, come. And the back used to be behind a curtain before it is now. And there was one table up there, and most tables had gone. And they came, and I sat them up there, and I was giving them drinks. And I saw him get his box of tricks out. And I said, look, please don't do that now. I said, and there was hardly, but he just happened to have a table next to him. I said, don't do that now. Go to the loo or do whatever you want to do, or go outside. And yeah, I did unceremoniously chuck them out because he basically, and I remember turning around to him. So he did what he did. And I was like, I'm trying to close up the restaurant, trying to give people their bills. And then I was like, what is that? And I'd said to him, please don't do it. Do it when we're closed, but do not do it while I've got guests. And I sniffed around and there was this smell. And I was like, you're not even just smoking weed, are you? You're smoking something else. So I went over and looked and said, and he got really uppity from my memory. He was like, I want to go where I can be fucking chilled. Be fucking chilled. And I was like, no, I am. But this is a fucking insult. And I said, it's a little bit like me turning up to Milk and Honey and you've got those lovely ice sticks. You deciding to take a bag of smack out and shoot up on your bar after you've told me not to do it. And I said, no, I wouldn't do that out of respect. And I think that was probably, I haven't seen him probably since then.
Really?
I don't know, on and off, but yeah, I did unceremoniously chuck him out.
He remembers it.
Yeah.
I think he thought it was a sort of final, obviously not fuck you to you specifically, but to the smoking ban. But so he went out on an absolute blaze because he decided to smoke opium.
Somewhere, yeah. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it was nothing to do with what he was smoking. It was the context of when and how, and the fact that I'd asked him not to hold back from doing it when I had other customers. Basically, again, it came in so late that I was closing and I was trying to clean up everything. And there were 2 or 3 tables left. One was next to him, and I was basically trying to get them to pay while still giving them free drinks. And I was like, I've given you free drinks, and now what you're doing is blowing smoke in these people's faces, who I'm trying to get to leave and told them they can't have anything more. And you're not only having more, you're having more illegally.
Oh, there you go. Things have improved.
Yeah.
Since those good old days, maybe. Yeah.
Oh, they've definitely improved. There's nothing that's worse.
Yeah.
Apart from the freedom to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I think and so I'm moving away from opium and into other products, but like the diversity of bars and ingredients and products is incredible. Of course, with that comes a lot of shit too. Yeah. There's shit stuff just as much as there was shit stuff before, but because
there's more shit stuff and more good stuff.
Exactly. Then as long as you can be bothered to seek out the good stuff, then there's so much good stuff, too much good stuff now. I mean, you know, like if you go back 25 years ago, you could come to London and see all the great bars in a weekend, you know? And now there's more.
You can see them in now. No.
You can do it in one night.
No, and everything is better now.
Yeah.
100% everything is better now. There are better products. There are better trained staff. There isn't anything that isn't better. Really, there isn't. I mean, you know, I might yearn for how things were, but everything is 100% better now. In terms of everything. To the point where I think it's a bit easy, not easy, but it's taken for granted slightly. And I think,
it is.
the idea, again, if we go back to when we were talking about Dick and like Havana Club being brought in by a saffron importer, when you only had 3 products to work with, you had to be clever how you did.
Into a corner.
You were forced into a corner. People weren't going out foraging for things that I like to do, or basically you had 10 bottles on a bar and you made drinks with 10 bottles or 20 bottles, and most of the products weren't that good. There were a few standout ones, and then the rest of it was shit. And so that does force you to work in a different way.
Yeah, innovation is a mother of necessity, right?
Yeah.
And that's the right way around, isn't it? And I do think sometimes the choice is actually a bit of a curse.
Of course it is.
Because there's just too many options, and you're like, what is the right thing to do? Oh, it's easy. I know that this range of products is good. I'll use that. And you're not really trying at that point.
Yeah. And you stop tasting. I mean, it's too much to taste in some ways.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. There used to be a time where you could taste everything.
Yeah, quite easily, yeah.
And now that day is gone. I mean, this whiskey bar has, I don't know, 300-400 bottles in it. I come here a lot. I drink a lot of whiskey. I've not tasted half of this.
No, and you could never do that. I don't think. Oh, well, actually, you probably have done.
Yeah, well,
by writing your books, but
yeah.
As an operator, you couldn't possibly do that. You don't have the luxury of spending all day tasting everything all the time.
Yeah.
So it's definitely better. It's like having a village library compared to going into the British library. It's like you go into a village library, you're like, there's this. Right, I'll read that.
Yeah.
And now,
especially when you narrow it down to specific genres, right? There's like books to choose from. Yeah.
And so, it is inevitably better, but you have to suddenly hone in on things. Yeah. And I think that's maybe the problem. People don't hone in on what they're good at or find what is good.
Yeah. Speaking about things that are good, we've been drinking Martinis for a couple of hours now, an hour and a half, made with Hepple.
Let's move to whiskey.
Well, no, I was going to say, do you want to talk about Hepple whilst we're still got a martini left?
I need a pee if that's okay.
Yeah, that's cool.
And you could edit that out, or
definitely edit out the pee itself.
Yeah.
You can use the ladies there, and that's easiest rather than going outside. Go do that.
Going outside?
Well, you have to go to the men's. So yeah, Hepple. How did this come about? This is your gin brand.
Yeah.
Tell me about the story behind it, and then let's talk about the spirit itself.
Well, Hepple probably started out of something else that I want to talk about, because again, you said, did I ever invent any good cocktails? Probably fucking not. But I think one of the things that I'm most proud about is the products I made for Absolut, which were Absolut Craft.
I remember trying them with Dave Broom, who we were with last night.
Yeah. So when I made those, it was at that point where you could be a celebrity, flown around the world as a bartender, business class, first class, constantly, which is what I was done. And they said, you've got carte blanche to make flavors. And I had an amazing solicitor or lawyer at the time. So my contract was like a footballer's endorsement contract. So he'd been Gascoigne's agent for a little while. Right. So I had right of refusal on product. So they could never release anything out without me signing it off. And I was, again, obsessed by it. So I went into this little hole, and I had an office in Borough Market. And I used to lay out on the table. I had a boardroom table almost the size of this thing, but wider. And it used to get filled up with distillates and infusions. And I used to spend all night long tasting, nosing, and blending this stuff. And I was allowed complete freedom on it. And then I think I worked for 2.5 years in the Absolut distillery, on and off, making them. And I threw away 26,000 litres of product.
Wow.
And kept 36, I think it was, or something along those lines. There were 2 complete productions that I dismissed and said, you fucked it up. It's not right. And those products, when they came to market, the reason I'm proud of them is, one, I thought the liquids were good. I'd really enjoyed the liquids. But it was also the fact that a bartender for the first time had released something for a massive brand. I mean, it's not a little homegrown cottage industry. Absolut is huge, or was, and it still is, where I could have damaged their brand by the way I behave, by the way I make things. And they were willing to release it. And it slightly empowered bartenders. To say that you have your own flavors made by the second biggest vodka brand in the world, with my face on it and my name on it, and me having complete control over the liquid was the first. I know, you know, Dale had done some bitters and Gary had done some bitters, and I don't think anybody had really done that to that extent.
No,
I'm not sure people have since.
No, I mean, you're probably right.
No, people have done their version of something, or you know, and I've done it for Havana Club, a version of Havana Club, and I've done stuff for Jameson. But that was the first time where they were my flavors, made to my recipe by their technicians, with me having complete control over the liquid.
Would you have considered yourself a bartender still at the time? Because you were starting at this point, weren't you?
Yeah, and that, you know, even when I won Tales of the Cocktail Bartender of the Year, I wasn't a bartender. Hence, I was booed when I won it.
What?
Yeah, I mean, I have I smashed my plate, I think, on stage. I can't remember.
Did you?
I haven't got the plate. And I didn't really care about it. That year, more Europeans won than Americans. And I was on stage the whole time making drinks for, so I think it was mainly Europeans won, and I was resoundingly booed. Not by people I knew, but, you know, there's that big audience, or fairly big audience there. And then the year after, they turned it into a different thing. So there was American bartender.
Yeah, they had to split it out.
Yeah, because they were so fucked off.
Yeah. It couldn't
Because
be that
I'd won at their World Series of baseball.
Yeah.
I was able to do this thing, and I just think that shows how bartending had changed. That I've got, you know, an 11 million case brand, $1 billion industry, and I can do exactly what I want.
So how much product was released? 36?
I think there was 36,000 litres in the end bottles.
Oh.
Hugely expensive.
Yeah, I remember you bringing, I remember Tales of the Cocktail, my first Tales of the Cocktail. God, it must have been 14 years ago. Well, when were you doing the Absolute?
2011, 2012, something around that time.
Around that
it took
time.
about 2 years to release all three of them.
Yeah, and I was doing a thing with Dave Broom on cognac, and you
That's
came
right,
and kissed us with them in first thing in the morning, like this actually.
Yeah.
And tasting them all. Amazing. So I remember there was one with lemon verbena in
There was a lemon one that hadn't. There was
no lemon.
No citrus fruit, but only citrus herbs. So
things,
lemon verbena, lemon balm,
Yeah.
lemon myrtle, I think was in there. Distillates and macerations. Then there was a smoky tea type thing, which I can't remember. It was lapsang, but there were other bits and pieces in it. And then there was essentially like a bitter cherry thing with chocolate and loads of bitters in it, almost like a ready-made Negroni, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then, you know, those I'm really proud of, because that does show what you can do, and it's a big brand. And my deal with them was immensely financially rewarding to my company at the time. I had a company.
This is strange help.
Yeah, so I didn't really see it, but we were on a retainer. If it was in market, I got sent money. I was guaranteed a certain amount of trips per year at huge daily rates.
Well, you did tighten up this contract, didn't you?
Oh yeah, he was amazing, an amazing solicitor. And I think after that, I mean, I think Diageo did something at some point, didn't they, where they got bartenders to make their own things, but then they got slightly screwed over. My contract was the contract you needed.
The only other one I can think of similar to it is when Coca-Cola did that flavoured thing with a bunch of bartenders.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a massive brand.
But I don't know whether did they get good pay.
I don't think anyone paid anything, really.
Yeah. So I got paid very well for a long time.
Yeah. So that sort of moved you in the direction.
So that put me in the...
distilling.
Yeah, so I was interested in doing that stuff. I had a Rotavap at home for a long time. I think me, Tony, and Audrey were the first to have them because Dolly gave us them. So I had one, Tony got given one, and then we took one to Audrey in America. So I'd always been fiddling around with distilling things, and I used to stupidly make Desmond Payne gins on the Rotavap and send them down because I was doing a lot of stuff with Beefeater. And he'd look at them and go,
What the fuck are you doing?
what you do? I mean, he was intrigued by it. And then I'd made those things. I was working with Hicks, and I knew Val Warner quite well, the chef. And he came in one day and said, I'd really like to make... He'd known I'd made these things. And he said, I'd like to make a product with you. And he gave me an idea, and I said, I'd quite like to do it. I said, but the main ingredient in it was coumarin. And I said, there's no legs in coumarin in terms of America had banned it at that point. I said, so let's not bother doing that thing.
So Val proposed this to you.
Yeah, and I said that I like the idea, but you know, without being able to sell it in America, there's no real point in doing this. But I'd like to do something with you at some point. And then a few months later, he phoned me up and said, "Can you come up to Northumberland? You've been up there." And I was like, "What?"
Fucking miles away from everything.
Yeah, and so he got me a train ticket, and it's 4 hours on the train up to Almouth, and then an hour's drive. And I was like, "Why am I here? What the hell am I doing?" And he took me to Hepple, and Hepple is the most magical place. It's so beautiful. And it's owned by somebody I think is a great friend now, Walter Riddel, who's amazing. And again, when I went there the first time, I had no idea why I was there. But I was like, I want you to come here. I want you to meet my friend Walter, and maybe we can make something up here. And we went for a walk, and it's like a miniature Scotland up there.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the border, isn't it?
It's on the border,
but it's so remote. I mean, I think it's the most remote part of England.
It is. Yeah. I mean, Walter's kids went to a school which I think had 6 pupils in it across 7 years of age. Tiny little school. But it's amazing. And we went out for this walk.
And he owns a huge amount of the moorland there, right?
So he owns 4,000, 5,000. It varies whichever the time you ask him, whether he's being modest or not. But he owns about 5,000 hectares, acres, I don't know which they are. And we went for this walk, and it's beautiful. And it was sunshine, then there was snow, there was hail. And I was like, why am I here? And then he took me to these juniper plants. And I knew they were juniper. I mean, I'd done stuff with beef, I'd been to Tuscany with Desmond, I think. And these juniper plants looked different. They were gnarled, old things, battered by the elements up there. And Walter was like, I'd like to make a gin. And it was at that time when people had started to make gin. So it's post-Sipsmith, but before that
massive influx
thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, that'd be amazing. And so I went back, I think, a week later with some stills. I took a rotovap up, because everybody thinks you need to use a rotovap in life. Took a rotovap up, I took a normal pot still up. And we decided to make this gin. And I love it. And we very quickly decided it was actually going to be a classic style of gin. I mean, I think when I first went up there, because I was obsessed by foraging and all these botanicals, it was going to be some murky, cloudy, 47 botanical monstrosity. And then we went up there, and using technology to capture what was on the moor became important. And so, like I say, I'd used vacuum stills before, and they have their own properties, and they are good at some things and they're bad at other things. And there's an obsession around them. And then I was introduced to CO2 critical gas extraction. And
how were you introduced to that? And explain what it is.
Right. So I am no scientist. As I said, I had studied history of art, but I'm not bad. You know, when I was doing my A-levels, I was doing physics, chemistry, and maths, as well as history of art and English. So I understand it. But I'm not technical in that sort of way. And so Careby, my business partner at the time, had introduced me to vacuum stills. And then while we were making the Absolut products, he said, there's this thing, let's try and sell this technology into Absolut for making flavours. And we used to go down to the flavouring houses, and they used it. And I said, no. And then we came to this thing, and he said, you've got to try this thing. So we took a sample of juniper from the moor to a lab in Newcastle. And we went in there with this tiny 250-gram sample. And there were guys in the white coats, and they put it in this machine that I did not understand, and it went super word. And then there was a needle, and that, again, this is the way I do most things, I'm autodidactic. There was a needle on the end, and they hadn't put a collection jar underneath it, and this liquid started to form on the edge of it, and this little droplet, and I went like that and put it in my mouth. And it was the most intense. I mean, I had juniper in my mouth for a week at least, I mean, maybe longer. Because it's all the oils and all the sugars and
it extracts like 99%.
Yeah, it takes. So I mean, if I run a pot still efficiently, very well, I could get, I think, 60% of flavour extraction. But I'd probably change the flavour because I'm cooking things.
Yes.
And there's oxygen in there. There's loads of things.
Denaturing by heat.
I'm denaturing by heat, and there's oxygenation as well. Vacuum still, I can get a slightly higher amount of extraction, and I don't denature by heat, and there's obviously no oxygen. This stuff gets you up to 90% of pure flavour extraction because there's no physical barrier, so you can get the oils and the sugars in which a lot of the flavour is. And it was a revolutionary thing.
I think Martini use it.
Yeah, well, yes, oddly. So we got this system going, and it took us 2 years to get to the recipe. And because I'd worked on Desmond with Beefeater 24, I realised that you never just, if you're a big brand, you don't just go, we've had this great idea, here's the product, let's release. You do little tests and forums. So we tested it with Dave Broom and Desmond and chefs, and they'd come and sit and taste it around the table, and we'd tweak the formula over the course of 2 years. And during that 2 year period, I was still obviously having to do commercial stuff. So I think I was flying out of Moscow bar show, and I met Giuseppe Gallo, who at that time was working for Martini.
Yeah.
And he said, "What are you up to?" And I said, "Well, I'm doing this for whatever brand I was working for, but I've got my own little gin company." And I said, "I've got this technology nobody ever uses. It's in Flavouring House. I've been into Rotterdam and seen it working there, and I've tested it. It's amazing." And he went, "Supercritical gas extraction." I went, "Yeah." And he went, "Oh, we use that."
Oh, yeah, we use that.
And I said, "What do you mean? You don't tell anyone?" I said, "That's not your brand story for your vermouth, is the supercritical gas extraction." No, we don't dare tell people about it.
Yeah, it doesn't vibe with the sort of authentic.
No, exactly. And so he said, because they've got a lab in Switzerland, and all, again, whether it's true or not, because I've never been to the lab in Switzerland, but I did meet the guy who did the CO2 extraction eventually. So I said I was doing this, and they were like, "This is brilliant that you're doing it, because you're a small person doing it, and if you open the door, we can then say, yeah, we do that too." So they sort of like, they did a product for Russia that was of supercritical based flavoured vodka. It was like their vermouth, but without the wine in it, but all the and that. So he had this sort of like training plan
Under
that was in Russia.
under Bacardi vodka or under Martini?
It was
brand,
under
or?
Martini brand. I don't know whether, but he had this whole training platform, because again, I still didn't quite understand the science as well as I do now. So at certain pressures, the gas acts as a liquid and a gas at the same time, and carbon dioxide is an extremely efficient solvent, so it extracts fully. So he had these presentations that he sent to me. Maybe I shouldn't say that. He doesn't work for them anymore. No. But he sent me these things, and they were translated from Russian. It was about a flavoured vodka made with supercritical gas extracts. And it was amazing. Supercritical gas is incredible stuff.
You use it only for Juniper, right?
In the gin, we use it for Juniper.
And you do Douglas Fir?
We do the Douglas Fir vodka. So we do it with the gin. We do a pot distillate. And, a pot distillate is an amazing thing. And so we put, I think it's 11 botanicals. I have to count them. 11 botanicals. And then most of them are fairly classic. There's a few odd bits and pieces. Then we
got Douglas Fir in the gin as well?
Douglas Fir goes in the pot still.
Yeah.
Bog myrtle goes in there. Blackcurrant and blackcurrant leaf. They're the weird ones, I think, in the pot still.
Which are grown there in the garden.
They're grown in the garden. And then in the vacuum still, we repeat some of those botanicals to capture the high notes. We use green juniper, which is the unripe juniper.
Yes.
That goes through the vacuum. So we do 6 separate distillations. And then we blend in a CO2 extract of the juniper. And so it's sort of like 11 in the pot, 6 separate ones. Some are repeats and some are new ones. So Lovage, I think, is only in the vacuum still. Amalfi lemons are in the vacuum still, but not in the pot. There's Spanish organic ones. And then the CO2 extract, and it's blended. And so we always do that. With anything we make, we use these 3 processes to capture all these different... And I think the Douglas Fir vodka, in some ways, illustrates what you can do with technology to something... I mean, it's not exactly a poetic...
No.
It's the IKEA furniture pine tree that's grown in those big, horrible northern swathes. It grows on our land, and there is a plantation of it somewhere over the top. But if you use those pieces of technology carefully and semi-desiccate the Douglas Fir, you can get these tropical, grapefruity, ethyl notes out of it.
Crazy.
But you can only get those if you use the technology. And so that juxtaposition of technology, and it's, as you know, it's a complete wilderness up there. Mm-hmm. And it's Walter C. It's a rewilding project. So you've got this technology and wilderness collide in the gin and in the vodka.
It's remarkable. I mean, the gin is one of my favourites, without question, and I've written about it, and I love it, and I still love it to this day. I always often thought that the problem with this brand is there's too many
stories. Yeah. I mean, we've never got our head around.
What
you talk about the wilderness, we talk about the technology.
I mean, you've got Val and me. You've got Valentine. You've got Chris as well.
Yeah, Chris, who was the original Six-Smith distiller.
I mean, incredible distiller. We've got Walter and all of his story. You've got the land. You've got the wilderness. You've got the technology. Yeah. It's like a PR company's nightmare in a way, because it's like, what do we focus on with this?
And every PR we've ever had has always focused on a slightly different bit. We've now got a new bottle, which is helping.
Yeah.
The new bottle is elegant.
The launch about
I wasn't at that launch.
No, I didn't see you there. Yeah. That was at Hawksmoor.
Yeah, that was at Hawksmoor. Yeah, it's all the stories collide. So no, I mean, I love Hepple gin. I've been doing a low-ABV thing with Leo Robitschek in America.
Okay.
which again was
I did not know about this. This is not on my notes.
It's not in the UK. It's not on your notes. It's not in the UK. It's in America now. And again, I'm not easy to work with. So Leo phoned me up and said, look, I've got this person who wants to make a low ABV gin. Do you think you can do it? And I said, it's difficult. Little did I know how fucking difficult.
Who's Leo?
Robitschek from
Yeah,
Nomad. Yeah, Leo Robitschek from Nomad Hotel and 11 Madison. And he's an old friend of mine. We used to do Absolute stuff together. Absolute lick stuff. And he said, you know about making products, which is probably more what I do. I mean, I still have a bar, which we could mention in a minute.
We're going to get to that.
We'll get to that on the final bit. And so he called me up and said, look, I've got this partner who would like to make a low ABV gin. Would you be interested in doing it? And I was running the Groucho at that time. I'd gone back in there with Hicks and I was enjoying it. I said, to be honest, I couldn't give a fuck. I said, I'd like to work with you, Leo, because I really like Leo. I think he's amazing. I think his bars are great and the drinks he makes are crazy. And he met this woman called Sherelle, who had a soda company in America that had done quite well, quite nice flavors. And so I said, Leo, I'm difficult to work with. By my own admission.
Right.
By this point, I'd admitted I was difficult to work with. So I said, I only don't want to work with people I like. I don't want to go into business with anybody I don't like. I'm just too old for that shit. I don't want to waste my time. I said, so, no. I said, tell us, call me at this time. I think it was something that Bill Murray type thing, tell us, call me at this time or whatever. And so I was like, tell us, call me, and then I need to meet her in person. So she called me and we explained. I said, I've done this and done this. I said, but I like the idea and I love Leo, but I'm not sure I don't know you. So I said, you have to come to London to meet me.
That's the sort of the barrier of entry.
And she was like, what do you mean? I said,
I'm difficult. So
I said, I'm difficult. And I'm trying to tell you I'm difficult. So maybe you don't want to work with me.
I want to
do it,
enough
but
barriers into this. So
yeah, so I deliberately tried to not make myself money. She's really cool. She's from Seattle, I think, originally. But she lives in Costa Rica part of the time. And now actually Morocco and Costa Rica. So I said, you need to come to London to meet me. And we'll have a few drinks. And if I like you, I might do it. She was cool. She was up for this. She's a really cool woman. So she flew over from America at this point. Came and met me in the Groucho. And I said, well, here's not really the place where we can talk about this. And I think I took her up to 3 Sheets. They'd just opened around the corner. And again, it was definitely that Bill Murray thing. I was watching how she behaved with me and also everybody in there. She's amazing. So I said, I want full control of liquid. I want to make it how me and Leo want it to taste. And basically, not you stay out of it, but that's what I need. And she was really cool. She was really lovely. And we knew some people and she'd been coming to the Groucho for years. So again, there has to be a connect. And we connected she'd been there a few times. She knew people I knew. But she had flown halfway around the globe to fucking meet me. And I was on the point of saying no. And then we started doing it. And she's amazing. And I spent a lot of time up in Crucible with Stuart, who used to work for me, messing around with trying to get flavour extracted via classical distillation. Because again, I didn't want to get into rotovaps and things. And buying in CO2 extracts. And so we've made a half ABV gin called Second Sip. There's out in America now. It'll come here at some point. And it's good. I really like it. I mean, I was skeptical. I'm not, we're here in the morning. I'm drinking full strength martinis. But I see there is a need for that. And they're incredible, the team in America.
How do you approach it differently to Hepple? Obviously, botanicals are a thing and a Juniper, but is there something you do to compensate for the lack of alcohol? Again, there was a balancing act most low ABV or no ABV that I've tasted that are distillate style products have that thing that you get in really bad gin where you're cooking in the water and it's like that stewed tea taste. It's not nice, damp dog, whatever. Yeah. And it's about getting the balance of pumping the alcohol and being able to drop it down. So you overpack the still, push the alcohol, and then pulling it down the amount of times things Louche. So it was a really difficult process. So we ended up separating out the juniper and earthy components like angelica root, licorice, and almond, and then the citrus bit. We distill those.
Which one causes the Louche?
to be honest, they were both unpredictable buggers. But they both do, and they have been causing me heartache constantly every time we distill. Because, again, temperature and the ambience, and we distill in New York and the New York Distilling Company
All right.
at the moment. And every time we distill, I mean, New York's temperature changes so dramatically. So I'm always nervous there's going to be a little bit of Louche. And we're on the cusp of it.
So it's at 20%?
It's at 20%.
20%.
We tried it at different ABVs, and 20% seemed to be logical, and it works with the idea of being able to have double the amount of drinks, essentially, or half the hangover.
Yeah.
And then it's got CO2 extract, Juniper added afterwards. It's got an umami extract from seaweed added afterwards. It's got molten sea salt added afterwards, and a tiny amount of glycerin for texture. Because texture, again, those non-alcohol things, there's no length on the palate and there's no texture. It doesn't sit on the palate the same way.
Yeah.
And so, you know, with the big one that came out first, which I think was pioneering and amazing as a product, I never actually liked the liquid. But whenever I tried the liquid and added sugar, salt and glycerin to it, I could make it taste 10 times better than they bottled it. Or in my mind.
So what's it got? Half cut, did you say?
So it's called Second Sip. So it's out in New York
half
now. It'll be over America. It'll come over here. Maybe next year it's going to get distilled over here.
Cool.
And it's a blend of things, and it's nice for that sort of thing. And there is a need state for that market.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, people are drinking less.
I like the idea of half strength rather than like 0 ABV.
Yeah.
Kind of trying to be a gin sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, you can, you know, Leo will say I can have twice as many and half the hangover.
The question is, do I drink martinis twice as fast or not?
I think the odd thing is with the no alcohol thing, because Hicks, when I was at the Groucho, Mark had some issues and we had to stop drinking for a while. And I don't think you drink non-alcohol any faster than you do non-alcoholic. Because if you treat them in the same way, so we would drink non-alcoholic wine and what else was out there? We'd drink that Bativo stuff, non-alcoholic beers. And even when I was drinking the non-alcoholic wine, which I knew was essentially grape juice, most of it, I mean, messed around with. And so I could have almost chugged it like I might do an orange.
The ritual of it being in that glass.
It's in that glass,
and
way. It looks like that, and you think it's red wine. You drink it, it's like it. Yeah,
and the same.
And I think it's the same with.
But then I wonder if you continue, if you don't drink, and so suddenly that reference point of what a glass of wine normally is, what a martini normally is.
I'm sure that changes. Yeah.
And then suddenly you're like,
you get sugar. Yeah, I'm sure it does. But I think you'd have to do it a lot.
Yeah.
And again, it's hard for me to admit, but I do think there's a place for great mid, and great full alcohol. Now, in the past, I'd have been completely, everything is alcohol. Yeah. All I care about is alcohol. But now I know it needs to move and it needs to wave. And actually, the way I drink is different. How it would be, I drink hard liquor all the time. And when I was working in bars with Dick, we would rotor it on so that it was the old-fashioned era. So I think makers had just arrived in the country and we were suddenly obsessed by making old-fashioned. And we would basically have one person, we would compensate for them not working by them making us old-fashioned. So one person was designated bartender's old-fashioned maker, while two of us would pull a harder shift so we could always have old-fashions on tap.
Wow, that is fucking cool.
So there's an Irish guy called Bill who was amazing at making old-fashioned. He was a really good bartender, but we'd be like, you make the old-fashions all night.
We'll take care of the
We'll
rest
take care of all the customers and everything, but we'd have to work a little bit harder. So he was always making us perfectly stirred old-fashions. And so we had old-fashioned.
Fueling yourself.
Fueling ourselves all the way through.
Speaking of whiskey, let's try this. This is, so it's bottled, I just put it out, I've not tasted it. It's bottled by Cut Your Wolf Loose, independent bottler. This is from Australia.
It's a great label.
So yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's Highriman at Lord Byron Distillery, 3-year-old Australian single malt. First full bourbon cask, 54%.
Smells amazing.
I'm going to try it. Ooh. I think it's slightly rummy, actually. I don't know if it's after drinking a quarter of a litre of a martini, but... Oh, yeah. That's good. Wouldn't think that was 54%. Blimey. Vanilla.
An odd tasting though, but it's got an odd Tipex thinner note to it as well, which I used to quite enjoy sniffing as a teenager.
Right, let's finish up by talking about what you're up to now. And I came and saw what you're up to now last night. Not even open. Over in Burlington Arcade.
Yeah.
Just off Piccadilly. Tell me about this project. How did it come about? Describe it, what it is, elevator pitch, and then let's talk about the details.
It's a jewellery shop.
Yes.
It's run by a friend of mine that I've known through Mark Hicks for a long time, an amazing jeweller called Steve Webster. And in the basement, there is his menswear department, and there happens to be a bar there. Stephen's always supported bars, and I've known him for a long time. And he's got this little bar. And I went in there to train his staff how to make martinis. He just wanted to make a good martini. It's called No Regrets. And then I was walking away going, the staff are not going to do this. You know, they're selling jewellery. Can we bottle it? Can we? And there would have been a way around it like that. And I was like, actually, maybe I quite fancy doing this. I'm a bit bored. And so it's going to be a daytime drinking thing. It'll have no Instagram. It'll have a telephone number. We'll do martinis. I'm working with Stuart from Crucible, so we'll do some drinks out of the lab. They'll change whenever we want. We'll select spirits as and when we want them. It's in Mayfair, so it's not going to be cheap, but it's not going to be high-end Mayfair pricing. I'll work with people like Hepple, obviously. I work with Capriolas, because I love what Barney does with his eau de vies. We'll do stuff with... who else are we doing stuff with? Sugru, which is Robin Hudson.
Tried last night.
Yeah, it's an amazing English sparkling wine. Really, really good. Dermot, the winemaker's incredible. We'll do little bits of food. Sausage rolls curated by different chefs.
Yeah, you're going to do monthly rotating sausage roll thing.
Rotating sausage rolls, yeah. Yeah, it's going to be it's sex, drugs and sausage rolls. Stephen's a really cool jeweller and he does a lot of rock and roll jewellery. And we'll be open daytimes.
Yeah, close to
sausage
6,
rolls
right?
to caviar.
Last entry before 6, right?
Last entry before 6.
Yeah.
Last entry before 6.
Yeah.
And it's just a tiny little 18 cover bar.
Little basement.
It's
beautifully done.
Got
You've
vinyl.
got Connor Brothers and Damien Hirst on the wall.
Yeah, we've got amazing art through Stephen and I.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the artist, Stephen knows the artists. And so we'll have lovely artists in there doing stuff. And just a really simple little drinks thing. Sausage rolls to caviar.
I mean, sausage rolls,
And
caviar,
close
and
about 6 o'clock.
It's just perfect. Like I say, we popped in last night for a quick drink, and it has all the makings of a cult following of a space.
Yeah, I mean, I really like, and there's...
It's effectively going to be kind of invitation only, right? You got a phone to book.
Yeah, you got a phone to book, or you got a phone to say you're coming. I mean, you have to walk through a jewellery shop, and the jewellery shop has a lock on the door, so you can't get in. But I love the space, and I just like to see movies like, let's just see what happens. You know, and if it works and it's nice, we'll like it. If we don't like it, we'll close it.
Yeah.
If we don't like the people, we'll change the telephone number.
It has a feeling of a sort of one of the Japanese bars,
Yeah.
about it, where it's like you need to know it's there. It's very small and very intimate. One bartender.
Yeah.
Very small selection of drinks.
Yeah.
Attention to detail. Beautiful surroundings. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, to go back to, because of the circumstance of the shop and the lack of space, we'll have ice to serve drinks over, but no drink will be shaken or stirred because we just can't do it. It's it's 1.5 meter long bar with very limited refrigeration, no ice well, none of that sort of stuff. So we can't make drinks well by shaking and stirring.
Yeah. So is it going to be you or Stu Bale there?
There'll be me or Stu or a couple of people that Stu and I trust working there. It'll open, I think initially we'll open Tuesday to Friday till 6.
I mean, what a business plan, eh?
But that area of London, again, I love I've always loved that. I love that area. I like Jermyn Street, and I love,
Yeah, amazing. Like little
Cork
corner
Street,
there.
Cork Street. I love the
That
combination
corner between around Regent Street and
of
Piccadilly.
art and fashion and hedge fund.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't really mind that either. But they drink in the afternoon.
Yeah, they do. Who do you envisage the clientele being? Is it going to be people you know mostly, or
I want it to be essentially slightly by invitation. I can't have people queuing up to go in there. It's a jeweller's. It's essentially a jeweler. The business is jewellery. So I want it slightly to be by word of mouth. And again, it's about that curation. We talked about Dick being the great curator of people. And the people I've had in so far, so we've been not open, but I've just been saying, why don't you come down and tell us what you think, and I'll give you a drink and taste it and sit in the room and feel it.
Yeah.
And the commonality between the people that I know, and even when I don't know they know one another, there's suddenly a connect. So Henrietta, who the tea lady, Rare Tea Company, who was amazing, came in to see me and talk about tea. And I had another friend that I had never met before, but is Mick Jones from The Clash's daughter.
Okay.
Who's married to Matt Collishaw's son. And Matt Collishaw's the amazing artist, YBA guy. And they sat down, they happened to be in there, and I was meeting both of them at the same time because I organised it badly. And so I introduced them to each other, and then they said, oh, Hastings, and Hastings came up, and they had friends in common in Hastings. So I wanted to be that sort of place where people come in, and whoever you happen to be sat next to, there will be a commonality.
Stacey Emin's out that way, isn't she?
She's down in, yeah. So there'll be that sort of thing where, yes, you slightly have to be invited, but if you know people who know people, then you're going to know them, and you'll come in. And it will be Martinis, Negronis, a few other drinks that we make in the lab, Sugru.
I mean, it's kind of a club in a way, isn't it? Without the membership fee.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. Again, all that, like...
This is like-minded people as well.
Like-minded people. You have to want to be sitting next to them. If people come in that we don't like, they won't come in again. And I don't mean that in a horrible way, but it just has to be curated. Such a small space. Can't have an arsehole in there, apart from me.
There's only room for one.
Then one room for, and it's mine.
It's a big arsehole.
So it has to be like that. And I think, people will blag their way in, and congratulations to them. And that was the whole thing with private members club is, yes, they're private, but you can always blag your way in if you're clever about it and you have that much determination.
Yeah. One little more whiskey to try, and then we're going to finish up.
Yeah.
This is Wireworks, so English whiskey, Derbyshire.
Derbyshire?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's Derbyshire. Yeah.
So it's tiny and it's lovely. It allows me to do other things. If we get busy, we'll open for longer, like more days in the week. Tuesday to Friday at the moment is what I intend.
And are you doing consultancy stuff at the moment as well, like other bits and...
And I'm going to do stuff, I think, with Richard Corrigan. He's obviously got Corrigan's, Mayfair, Bentley's, Bentley's in one of my favourite places. And then he's got a little place in Shoreditch. And so I do a little bit of stuff with him. I don't want to do anything I don't want to do.
And what else is going on besides
And then I'm going out to Africa with Val. We do Kitchen in the Wild, which is what we did in Norway for a number of years. So I'm going to do that in Africa this year. That's it.
Yeah, he's such a cool guy.
Val's amazing.
I definitely want to get him on the show. I back at the bottle launch, the new Hepple bottle launch, I chatted with him for a couple of hours. And obviously I've met him before.
Yeah.
But such a great, passionate, brilliant writer.
His writing about food is some of my favourite writing about food. His Instagram.
There's something visceral about the way he talks about
and
it.
And he's shambolic, but brilliantly shambolic.
Yeah.
And when I watch him cook, it's intuitive. He sort of like puts things in, tastes it, puts things in. When I watch people like Mark cook, they're amazing. Watching Mark is like watching a swan. You don't see it move, but he creates all these amazing dishes. Val is very different. He's very chaotic,
yes,
but intuitive and amazing. He worked with Alistair Little, who was one of my favourite chefs. In fact, I think, again, going back all the way back to Fred's, I remember wandering around to Alistair Little on Frith Street and tasting Japanese and Italian food like I'd never tasted, cooked by an English bloke, on tables with no tablecloth, but just the amazing produce. It's just produce-driven stuff. And so Val is like that. It's all about produce. It's all about how he feels at that moment. He's incredibly emotional. He's up and down. Incredible. So working with him is always fun. So I'll always do so. He's doing a load of stuff in Ireland at the moment. So hopefully I'll get involved in that at some point.
I love the way that we return back to Fred's again.
Exactly. It all goes back to 1987.
Yeah. Nick Strangeway, thanks so much.
No, thank you,
Chris.
Tristan.
Absolute pleasure. And may I say, I know a lot of this history anyway. If I'd called you up without the cameras and the microphones and said, can you sit down and tell me all this, it would have been a bit fucking weird.
You could have asked
it's
that.
One of the great things about the podcast is that we get to have these conversations and share it with other people.
But it's also good to remind me of what I've done. I keep forgetting it. There's a 15-year hazy period of lots of booze, lots of drugs, and lots of fun.
Don't worry, when you're in the care home, I'll continue to be around with cameras and microphones. Nick, come on, remember.
spit it. You know who? Again, the last bit. I bumped into Peter Dorelli at Locatelli's launch at the National Gallery. Peter, and you know, I love Peter, but the stories he can tell, and he's never written a book, and I've never written a book, and I never quite get round to writing it because I can't remember most of the stuff. But he is amazing at all these things, and again, he must have so many stories that need telling.
Yeah. No, I need to get him on.
We didn't even talk about the Floridita to each other. I used to spend loads of time in Cuba, but...
Well, look, let's do a round 2 at some point. I mean, I've got a rule, I'm not repeating guests in the first year, but once we get past that mark...
all the bits I didn't remember that I suddenly remembered.
Exactly. People will remind you of like, you were on the podcast, but you didn't mention this. It's like, I've noted down and then we'll talk about it next time.
Well, I keep bumping into people who said, I used to work for you. And I was like, when? Chris Moore
Yeah.
worked for me.
Yeah.
I've completely forgotten that.
I mean,
and not because he, I
have this with people.
I forgot
as well.
that he'd ever worked for me.
People. I mean, I owned bars for years, and so a lot of people went through the doors, you know, and you can't remember everyone. Anyway, let's finish up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was amazing.
That was a pleasure.